shadows hide you? I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 325 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, January 6, 2022 in the evening. Hey, Happy New Year! First episode of the year, hooray! Very exciting. And from Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hats. From Kazakhstan, California, we've got Botticus.
Hello.
From Nome, Oregon, Ohio, we've got Edelweiss.
Hello.
From where you are, listener, we've got you. Thank you so much for being here. Hope your new year is going well. Hope your old year is as over as you want it to be. It's over either way. So welcome to 2022. We're in the future. And thank you so much to everyone that left us a review. Thank you to all our patrons. And thank you to everyone that's just tuning in, listening, and having a good time. We appreciate you. All right. Coin Concedes. No, that's the end of the show. Life and Ladder. We're at the beginning of the show.
Dang, that was a fast show. Holy cow. I didn't even... That went by so quickly.
I blinked and missed it.
Yes. So, Life and Ladder. Edelweiss, you wrote some words. Tell me about these words.
I did write some words. So, I was messing around with Warrior. Initially, what started this was Hat saying we've got a board-based meta and Lothar isn't good enough. And that was accurate. But...
All right.
Eventually, I switched off the conditioning decks and I went full aggro warrior. And aggro warrior actually took me to legend. I was playing double frothing berserker and the 1-mana frenzy card and man the cannons as my whirlwind effect for killing people on turn 5 out of nowhere. I had an excellent time. I think it was pretty decent against paladins and like, you know, sometimes other things. And so that was a solid deck for taking me to Legend. Then I got into Legend and it became completely worthless. Could not win a game because I was facing, way too many weapon rogues or the Druid, I think, got a lot more popular by that point.
The Druid? Oh, the PT John 07 / No Hands Gamer list. Because Druid is this constellation of cards that just get shuffled around in a random order whenever you queue into a Druid. There are so many different Druid decks that are all like half similar, and they all play Guff, except the No Hands list, which is originally developed by PT John 07, is now cutting Guff. But it's like the Beast Druid adjacent thing. Guff's not good in that deck. We'll talk about it.
What?
It's not good in that deck.
Well, I don't think I've seen that one then.
Yeah.
But anyway... The warrior just somehow I couldn't get a win with it. Maybe if I tried it, picked it up again, I would have better luck. But I switched from warrior after getting my screenshots of turn 4 kills to hand buff paladin because I'd been wanting to try hand buff paladin for a while, and Librams are kind of boring at this point. And I was surprised that I managed to maintain a pretty solid win rate. And as it now stands, I've shuffled around the list a little bit. I have since added double broomstick because it feels pretty important. I'm tinkering around with having Barov because of the druids. But in general, having my list, I'm at 40 and 22, 65% win rate. And this is in top 500 legend. So that's unusual for me. And it's sweet to get to do it with my own creation. Iron Deep Trog with Noble Mount is just so good.
You didn't need the Noble Mount part. You're not wrong, but Trog's still good. Trog's still the best card in Face Hunter, one of the top mulligans in Paladin, really good in all the Druid decks that are playing Arbor up because you don't care that's a 1/2 because it's actually a 3/3. Yeah.
But not unsurmountable anymore.
No.
Yes, it's true.
Well, we were casting Noble Mount on it anyway, so it was always kind of surmountable. But
Yeah, I saw that coming after I said it.
Regardless, it's still a very good target, and I've definitely pulled out some games off the back of Iron Deep Trog. It is a little weird, though, because it sort of feels like when I commit to that line, the rest of the deck doesn't necessarily matter, because I get board locked from Trogs anyway. And I think the most egregious offender of this is when I'm up against Weapon Rogue, and we get to go in on the Trog plan. And I'm just sitting there like, how many buffs can I draw? How much power can I get down before they board lock me? And will they be able to get both Cloak of Shadows before they scabs and I die? That's basically how those games go. It's very intense. It's very like high adrenaline, except I'm not doing anything because I did everything the first 3 or 4 turns. And it's really just about them drawing cards and whether they get both copies of Cloak of Shadows before Scabs comes down. I literally was sitting there, attack with all my minions, pass turn. Attack with all my minions, pass turn. Cloak of Shadows, okay, we do nothing, pass turn. It's so awful.
Yeah. Cloak Scabs. I'm good. I'm good. I'm all set.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more.
Yeah, thanks for giving me an answer to a later question that we're going to be answering in the mailbag segment.
3 mana cards that make my dead opponent not dead. Yes. There's a whole category there. We call these the Schwal cards because Schwal he's a regular in many Hearthstone discords, and 3 mana cards like Ice Block, Timeout, and Cloak of Shadows that make the other person not dead are not his favorites and not mine either. Anyways, Botticus, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I was pretty excited to play a Path of Exile event, and I won't talk about it too long, but over the weekend I was like 2nd or 3rd highest level gladiator or whatever. And then as I continued to play the event, it got worse. Basically the whole idea behind the event is that like there's this thing that creates more monsters, which is a lot of fun. But the problem is there are certain portions where the monsters just have like 95% damage reduction, and so when that happens, you don't get to play the game because the monsters don't die, because that's how the game works. So kind of gave up on that because I was considering trying to go for like a top 5 finish, which gets you a cool item in game, and then as I was playing I was having less and less fun, so I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is not fun anymore, so I'm going to stop doing that, and now I'm just back to playing regular Path of Exile. In terms of Hearthstone, I played a little bit more Quest Priest, which was somewhat enjoyable. And then I also played the other bad guy of the format, which is Mozaki Mage, because I had 2 quests to deal 100 damage. One was with Arcane and one was with Frost. And despite playing Mozaki Mage, which gets a ton of spell damage and could do a lot of frost damage with Brain Freeze, I'm still working on the quest. And I've seen it talked about a few times. They might need to tweak the amount of damage you have to do with those spells, because as Hat said, you could do them in Mercenaries, but if you're like me and don't go into the Mercenaries mode, it takes a really, really long time to complete those quests, because I think I've had this Frost quest for at least 2 weeks now. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, for those wondering, PoE is Path of Exile. It's basically a really good version of Diablo 3, is the simplest way to put it. It's way more complicated than that, but that'll at least get some people on board.
The spiritual successor to Diablo 2. I think people were like, oh,
exactly.
Diablo 3 was not what we wanted. Enter Path of Exile.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Mozaki Mage, I don't feel great about playing it, but I am trying to complete that quest. And I will say I did feel pretty good killing a paladin who was at 28 life and then played Lightforge Carriel and then died the next turn to fire damage to the face. I did feel good about that. I'm not going to be upset about killing a Lightforge Carriel.
But I once was at 30 with 5 armor and died to the Mozaki. I was very distraught.
It's surprising because the deck does not
pretty significant.
Yeah, it doesn't go infinite, but it does a lot of damage. So, I mean,
if you aren't under pressure and you can wait to do both biscuits and get to 10 mana, you can probably do 50-ish in the turn. Like, it's not too hard to do because you get to redraw the ignites the same turn. Even if you deck yourself out, you redraw the ignites. A lot of times you cast it first to pad the deck before the last cram session. So then you can cram through your whole deck and just get to ignite twice. So if you get to do fully boosted plus 10 spell damage, siphon, rune orb, ignite, like, they just, 60-ish? They take a lot of damage.
I mean, it was enough to kill them from 20. It was high 20s plus 5 armor having that damage, and it was turn 8 for me. I guess I was on 8 mana, so yeah, I did enjoy killing them. I feel a little bit bad for other people, but not for that paladin. That paladin deserved it.
Yeah. Well, glad you were there to distribute justice. As for me, I am tired. I am tired, friends. So work was supposed to get easier when the holidays ended. And then one of my managers had a pre-booked request off, and then the day that started, my other manager had a confirmed positive test. So I am... So we have 2 managers, and you need 1 in the building all the time. So that means I'm just opening the building, and everyone's closing the building every day until they get back. So that's Monday-ish. It's been a long week. Also, I kind of have a problem. I'm addicted to Hearthstone. So, finished last month at 37. I'm 31 right now, been hovering around there. So, I mean, my goal now is just to not decay out of top 50 and then see what happens. But that's what's happened all month so far. I entered at 16. People are definitely pushing pretty hard because it's the top 50 qualifies now. But I've been hovering up there, and I'm playing some silly stuff. I got to legend this month. I got to legend with Shadow Priest, with Serena and Najak Hexen. By the way, Najak Hexen very good against Paladin, really good in that matchup. It's just like they just play we don't want to get to turn 7. They Aldor Truthseeker, Libram of Wisdom it. Zoop, that's mine now. You got to make that noise. If you don't go zoop, then it doesn't work. And also when my rogue opponent recons a Murgurgle, which is hold on. That one. When my rogue opponent plays that, it's a 2/1 with Divine Shield, so I just Serena that. And now I have a 3/2 and they have nothing. It's pretty good. Nice. It's pretty good, right? Yeah. So, it was actually pretty solid. I don't know if it's the best deck in the world, but it felt good enough to do stuff. It beats the slow Druid decks. The minions are a little bit more resilient than Face Hunter. You're not as buff dependent. You get Void Touch Attendant. You got a hero power that does some damage. It's all right. And then in Legend, I've been playing some Thief Rogue. I really love the current Thief Rogue, but now it's actually everywhere, and the mirrors are stupid. They're stupid, dumb mirrors. I lost a mirror match. It was one of my favorite losses in a while. Lost a mirror match to, I don't remember if I said this last week. I'm going to say it again, I don't care. Murgurgle Prime into Prep Potion of Illusion. I lost that mirror. So, there's... That matchup is so interesting because you'd think it'd be whoever gets on board first, but you're both so good at dealing with board that in the first 4 turns, all of your stuff just dies on both sides, and then it's just whoever scams harder. So like, or if one player draws scabs and the other doesn't. But so I switched to, I've been trying out various Beast Druid builds, the No Hands Gamer PT John build, the Ivis and the Guff, they don't belong in the deck. The big legendaries don't belong, so I've been trying some lower curve stuff. Oracle of Elune is really the card that matters here. With Moonlit Guidance together, they're Umbral Owl or Frostwolf Matriarch, so you make a bunch of 4/4s and 4/5s, whatever. Very good against Poison Rogue, unless you're a little too slow and the Niclo Cloak Scabs kill you. But usually you're fast enough. You can actually win the rogue matchups if they don't get Plunderer starts. It's the Knoll is important, but Plunderer and Step is how they really take you off the board. But then also I've been playing some big Beast Hunter with Mountain Bears, and that deck's actually okay. That deck's actually alright. It's I played yesterday against a Beast Druid. They cast an Arbor up on a board of 5 minions, and the following turn that I got, my Open the Cages procced, because I still had taunts in play. Because I had multiple Mountain Bears they had to fight through. When you have Tavish on 6, into Mountain Bear, Jewel, into Ikman. I ran out of beasts, they ran out of minions, and then they left. So, I don't know. That was really fun. I just played a game just before the show. I queued into Monsanto. I was playing Big Beast Hunter, and he was playing Big Demon Hunter. The Battle of the Big Hunters. What is standard? I don't know. There's a really amazing format here, but Rogue is a little bit too good at too many things in too many different ways right now. So we'll talk about that in the balance section, but I really love the direction the format is going in, even though right now there's kind of a specter looming of scabs. So we'll figure it out. But having fun there. Also, I would like to do an early coin concede and also an early if this was a tournament report, it'd be props and slops. There's an up and a down to the Blizzlet podcast, because I didn't realize that the XCOM 2 collection was on iPad, and I was looking for a game to play on the train when I don't have an internet connection, and XCOM 2 is on the iPad. So I've been playing a lot of XCOM 2. And I've been playing a bunch of Hearthstone, and I have to work 8 out of 9 days this week. There's not a lot of downtime there, so I've been trying to manage my time, and I had a couple nights where I got a lot of sleep, then a couple nights where I didn't. Last night was one of those, because, when the only downtime I have per day is 2 hours, and I'm like, well, what if I just played more? And then I don't sleep. So we're managing. It's gonna be okay. Right now there's a lot going on. It's gonna be okay. But news, it's light, but we have some. So let's do that before we get to brief tournament section and then a massive mailbag.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. Not a ton of news this week, but we have a couple things real quick. We got another update on how the honor race is going between the two factions. There's been over 3 billion honor earned total by both sides, and Alliance is still winning.
I did not see this coming.
No, me neither. But I have noticed I play against a lot of Alliance opponents, so I'm less surprised now that I've actually, played some games. But yeah, I kind of am starting to doubt that Horde are going to be able to come back from this. But when is the it's the 16th, right? 16th is
the 11th. The cutoff is in 5 days.
11th.
Yeah, you can still earn,
so...
people listening, you can still earn honor towards your golden cards. The only cutoff that's being made is deciding which card gets made in Diamond for everybody. But you can still earn your golden cards. You can still get your golden Drekthar, Vandar, whatever. You can still grind out the other stuff. You've got 3 more months for that. And then after that, it'll be added to the achievement track for other stuff. So you'll always be able to get these free golden cards. It's just a question of which card will be Diamond-defied. And as of right now, it's looking like Vandar.
Sad. Very disappointing.
Hey, I'm going to take a stab at saying that there's probably if the Alliance are winning, it is more likely that it is because there are more Alliance players than there are Horde players. So on a positive note, I think that means most people are going to be happier because their side won, because the majority of people were on that side. But all three of us were Horde. It's unfortunate, but
hey,
it's okay. Diamond Vandar still going to be cool, and hopefully they realize that, they should probably just get a Diamond Drek at some point.
Should probably do both. But also, you know what deck that Diamond Vandar is going to go in? Big Beast Hunter. It's in there. All right. They're going to curve Diamond Vandar and a Mountain Bear. That's just how it's going to go.
All right, and the only other real news item we have here is there's going to be some Mercenaries things coming in the works from Paul in the Mercenaries Discord. Basically, TLDR, they're doing some restructuring on the team. Mercenaries is now one of the main pods with fully dedicated support from other disciplines, so that should make some things we want to accomplish this year easier to do. Not sure what we could talk about yet, but they're going to throw a few things they feel comfortable sharing now. So in 22.2, there's going to be some new Mercenaries, a new zone and bounties. The Training Grounds version 1 should be out. The third equipment is no longer going to be unlocked from Task 7 for new Mercenaries, and you now get them from clearing the appropriate heroic bounty with them on your team.
That seems like hold on, let's pause for a second. That seems like an enormous deal. Seems like a really big deal. Because the biggest issue with accessibility for Mercs, well, there were many competing biggest issues, but one of them was that a lot of the time the best equipment was the Task 7 equipment, so you had to grind Mysterious Strangers or 2/6, and this just completely removes that. If you just do a heroic bounty, which is the more interesting PvE content anyways, you just get the equipment right away. So I don't know if there will be access to the coins right away, but it's kind of nice that you know exactly what you have to do to get it, and it's available to you right away. That seems like a big deal.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, and I believe Donkey's asking in chat, is that for the new Mercs only? We don't have, this is not official patch note information or whatever, but it does say, he did say for the new Mercs, so I am guessing it is not retroactive. I'm guessing it's just for the new ones.
Yep, and we also have a bit more kind of like unconfirmed, but things that they're working on for Mercenaries. In 22.4, they're trying to see if they can deliver on a new feature that they're working on currently, which is to have more of an end game system for PvE. So for those of you who were kind of into Mercenaries at the start because you were testing it out, wanted to play some of the PvE modes, and were enjoying that and didn't really want to step foot into PvP, but then found there wasn't a whole lot to do at the end. Hopefully this new system is going to appeal to you and maybe get more people involved in this mode.
Yeah, very cool.
We're going to talk about Mercenaries in the Q&A section, and I think that there are a lot of Qs right now about Mercenaries and not as many As. You were saying?
Oh, I was just going to say that I feel like if you were someone who only really was concerned with PvE, then yeah, having some kind of end game thing would be nice, because it, in my opinion, is like pretty limited content right now. Like you could very easily just, okay, I've beaten everything on heroic. What do I do now? Like I guess I can level up some stuff, but it'd be feeling like there's not much to do at that point. For me, of course, the progression then is to go over to PvP, but I am just so enthralled with Alterac that I've really just been trying to not fall too far behind with Mercs.
Yep. If I'm logging into Hearthstone, I am playing Standard, or if I don't feel like playing Standard, I am playing probably Wild. It's just Alterac is too good. It's too good.
Yeah,
I guess that's the news.
Yeah, not a whole lot for news this week. Our Decksplanations is going to be a mailbag episode where we got a bunch of great questions that we will answer. Before we get into that, we had a bit of tournament news. So, Hat, why don't you take that part away?
It's the grand tournament!
All right, we start with the topic of the week among competitive players. If you submit Maestra to qualifiers, it is now legal. Before it was banned because the card was not relevant in Constructed, and it was a lot of admin headaches. Gesundheit. Sorry. My wife sneezed. So before, if you brought, you couldn't bring Maestra. It wasn't relevant. And a lot of admin headaches, like why are you the wrong class? So instead they found a new rule that allows people to communicate they're playing Maestra regardless of language barrier. Basically, if you are submitting Maestra to qualifiers, which are open list, you are required to make the card back for your Maestra deck classic, and the card back for your other two decks not classic. Doesn't matter what it is, can't be random. Just has to be any other card back that is not classic. Classic is only usable for the Maestra deck, and if you mess that up by either using the wrong card back for Maestra or using the classic card back for the others, then it's a game loss right away. Instantly. That is the answer here. Per the rule as implemented for this week.
Oh, where did they find this? Did they maybe find this from the Twitter of One Ridiculous Hat?
I believe One Ridiculous Hat tweeted at them unsolicited and said, "This is what we're gonna try," and then now it is a rule in the esports rulebook, and I feel strange. But yes, I think I am the origin of this rule. I think it is actually me. So cool. Glad that it worked for them, I hope. But the reason we decided against this rule in THL, well, first of all, we don't have a language barrier to worry about. We're only playing an America server. But second of all, we figured there would be a lot of people that would mess it up and there would be a lot of game losses. I don't think that open cups are going to be better about that, especially not in week 1. I think there will be a lot of game losses week 1. So, the wonderful person, John Orange Westberg, made a tweet, as he is known to do. Let's see, let me find this exactly. Please don't try and rule shark people on this. If you see someone that has Maestra in their lineup, just ask them before the match starts if they are aware of this rule. This prompted a lot of, I'm holding up quotes, discourse on Twitter. Also known as Twitter became unusable for about 12 hours, as it is known to do when such things happen. But I wanted to get both of your opinions on where you stand on this. Keep in mind, Orange specifically said, if you are playing against someone with Maestra in their lineup before you queue a game, just remind your opponent of the rule. That is what he suggested. Edelweiss, we talked about this a bit, but well, all three of us talked about this on the show.
That wasn't the wording that was the wording he used, but also there were other wording that I think was the contentious part of the topic, to be honest.
The word rule shark is probably what you're thinking of, I'm assuming.
I mean, yeah, that's probably the most contentious part of the tweet, I would guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I saw a tweet, I believe from Ray C about this.
Yes. Who was representing the other side of the argument, as it were. Let me see exactly what he said here, because, again, big part of the discourse. You are making people who are following the rules out to be bad for doing what they shouldn't even be given the option to do. Has been a consistent problem in Hearthstone. A player shouldn't get to choose to take a free win. It should be required. Or forced was the word he used. I don't like the word forced. He said required. But you can't do that in self-adjudicated open qualifiers because there's not someone watching every match. There is no such thing as a forced penalty. But this is kind of the crux of the issue, right? Those were two separate things. Orange said, mention something beforehand, and Ray said, no, you need to enforce the rules. But like that's not you can mention something beforehand and enforce the rules. You can do both. Those are not.
And you should do both.
I actually,
you probably should do both.
Hearing the way Ray worded that, I do agree with that statement.
Yes.
I don't think someone is like a bad person for enforcing the rules. That's not what's trying to be said here, in my opinion. I actually retweeted Orange's tweet because I agree with that sentiment, right? I think the rules should be enforced. Yeah, like they decided the punishment is a game loss, so it's definitely going to be enforced because there's a lot of incentive there. But I just think that knowing that this is very new and people may not be familiar, if you're trying to be like a hashtag good sport, the sportsmanship thing to do is say like, hey, just make sure you do this because like for me, good sportsmanship has always revolved around like, hey, we're here to play a game and we're here like I want to beat you at your best, right? So rather than going in with mentality of I'm going to cutthroat, do absolutely everything to get my edge, which is an approach, I would be more inclined to take this approach of like, hey, this is a new rule. I see Maestras in your lineup. Have you done this? If not, make sure you do that before we get into queue, because I want to beat you. I don't want to rules you. I understand not everyone's going to do that, but I like that he's putting that sentiment out there.
Yeah. Yep, I don't expect people to actually do what Orange suggested, but the idea of putting that out there is really nice. And also, please do me a favor, speaking as an admin, as a person that I run Team Hearth League, we're allowed to say League now, I asked Abar, he said it was okay, as the commissioner of that organization, the best take that I saw, overall, is from Dr. Jikininki, known from back in the day for winning at Hearthstone and being named Dr. Jikininki. The whole thread arguing about rules is so dumb. It's not about honor. It's not about scamming people. It's about following the rules. Hearthstone should just change the rule to be a warning on the first occurrence and not a game loss. And in a follow-up tweet, I as a player don't discern which rules are useful and which are not. Energy is better spent asking them to change it than arguing over who has a better opinion. Trust the doctor. Yeah. That's very important. Trust the doctor. Because when players decide when to enforce the rules, that's where you get into really messy areas of people adjudicate differently based on who they know and who they don't, or what the circumstances are, or what the stakes are, and everyone has a different opinion about how to do it. Follow the rules as they're written. However, being nice to your opponent is not something that they can require, nor is it something that if you're playing an event, I hope that you want to win by playing games and not by playing the rules. So, yeah, looking back at it, this is a lot less contentious than I thought it was. It's really just two people misunderstanding each other on Twitter, and then the rest of the universe around there talking about it for 6 hours. Man, social media has some ups and downs, huh?
I mean,
yeah.
So my perspective on this is that the entire first line of Orange's tweet is what caused this. If Orange had just said, if you see somebody having Maestra in their lineup, just ask them before the match starts if they're aware of this new rule. If you just said that, the whole, obviously it's text form, so it's hard to it's very, very hard to distinguish the intent of the thing. But this whole first line of "for the love of God, don't try to rule shark people," like that just sends the whole tweet into this whole decay of what happened on Twitter. Like it makes it seem like that, like I don't think he understand. Like it seems somewhat clear that he didn't understand that part of the tweet is what caused everybody to get into a fuss about everything. Because like if he was just trying to say, hey, which is I think what he was trying to say is just, hey, don't be a dick to your opponent. Make sure that they're following the rules and that they know about new rules. Then great. But it's just like the first part of the tweet, I think, threw it off, especially for me, just reading it. And also, while I appreciate Hat's sentiment, I disagree with Dr. Jankanicki, and I think that it should be a game loss because I am a fan of harsh punishments for not following rules. So,
yeah, I follow that, and there's always the question of what is the rule trying to protect players from, and that's what I think of, again, as an admin, of when you get into the circumstance of, nah, it's cool this time, don't worry about it, from the player that is on the receiving end of the person who, air quotes again, didn't know the rule. How many other people have they gotten over that way? How many other people have they taken advantage of that way? And how much advantage have they gained in the process, which is why the rules are supposed to be established and universally enforced. And so, like, they're written this way, and it's totally fine. But also, they did downgrade a normal miscue this year, a normal miscue in a non-Maestra lineup, to a warning instead of a game loss. So, if they say that a miscue, period, a normal, like, I just queued the wrong deck, if that's not a game loss anymore, I don't see how a card back issue with Maestra should be more severe.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that point, but I don't know that I was a fan of them reducing that rule to begin with.
And Donkey is pointing out in chat that there's no mention of what do you do after, and you just queue normally, because that means you could just do that every time and only get a warning, and you get one per every single qualifier you play, and you just get a warning every time, and then that's it. Unless they keep track of the warnings across multiple events. That's an edge that can be taken advantage of. In THL, if you miscue, it's a warning, but also your opponent chooses what you queue. Right? The person that, when you mess up, your opponent gets to pick what you queued, because the information is gained in the mulligan of what was I going to play, what were you going to play. So you negate the advantage of the information gain by allowing the opponent to dictate the decisions made in the next match. Right? The information didn't matter if that person didn't make the decision.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that solution a lot too. But I'm just, I mean, I think also when Maestro was banned from competitive play, I was also, I was not confused. I understand why they did it, but I didn't think that it was a necessary thing to do, because if the punishment is harsh enough where your opponent gets a game loss for miscuing a deck, and you have Maestra in your lineup, and you find out in the match that your opponent queued a deck incorrectly, like I didn't see a huge problem with having to play out a game with an opponent with a miscued deck.
The problem is one of administrative overhead, of just a lot of admins being called.
The issue was it wasn't competitively viable, and it required generating new rules, and that's, a lot of work to end up coming up with a new rule and figuring out whether to do it or not. So it was just something that they didn't need to do, and it was a lot easier to just end up banning it. And the problem is with people mulliganing for the wrong deck, right? That's why it...
I think that was like, that initially, that was the point of Maestra, in my eyes, was that Maestra was, like, before they came up with this whole idea of adding cards from other classes giving you a positive benefit, the idea of having Maestra was to trick your opponent, because that's what Maestra is doing, is tricking your opponent into thinking you're playing a deck that you're not actually playing and getting that advantage.
Right, but it's not like Maestra is limited to well, it could be a rogue or it could be one of my other 2 classes that are in my lineup. They didn't want to deal with the situations of like Gabby in that Tice tournament where he just completely got by the opposing Maestra and thought that they queued the wrong deck and so conceded so they could restart. What happens then when the opponent takes a screenshot of their opponent conceding and says, look, my opponent conceded, and they're like, well, I conceded because of Maestra. It's a lot of administrative stuff. That's
pain. Because Gabby knew that in basically every other competitive environment that card is banned. So when he sees a class that his opponent theoretically can't be playing, then obviously he's going to concede there. But if that rule isn't in place and he knows that Maestra is a realistic option, then automatically you know that your opponent is playing a Maestra deck if the class that you're playing against is not one of your opponent's classes. You just automatically know that it's Maestra. And then if they play a card that is not in one of their decks, then, or that is like from that class that is not in your opponent's lineup, then you know that they miscued a deck, right?
I think you're overestimating people's thought process on like all sides here.
Well, it's
because
if they get halfway down this road at any point, they just call an admin. And so the goal of banning Maestra is to reduce admin calls. Because they'll just get somewhere near the things that we're talking through, and Botticus, your logic makes sense, but if you get halfway down this road, people just call admins all the time in tournaments. They call admins for stupid reasons, let alone smart ones, and so there would just be so many calls. Now that Maestra is more of a common thing, and something that people are also running into ladder, there's a bit of intuitive understanding around it, because if you play on ladder, you're going to play against Maestra because it's 30% of Legend, and also that there's a reason to do so now. Before, there wasn't really a reason to do so, and there were just going to be a bunch of calls. But, you know, I thought, if you think about it, if you legitimately think about it, and sit there and think about it, you can work through all the scenarios pretty quickly if you want to, but a lot of Open Cup players won't want to, and they'll just be like, no, just what's going on. Plus, don't forget, language barrier. Sometimes you cannot directly communicate with your opponent, and then it gets real sticky.
Yeah. And I think regarding whether it should be a warning or not, I think I'm okay with it being a game loss in general, because it's like severe consequences are how you incentivize people to do the right thing. But I think it would be reasonable to say, hey, for this first weekend of qualifiers, it will be a warning. But from that point on, it's a game loss or something like that, because it's going to take some adjustment to get used to the rule.
But I think it works better if you do it the way they're doing it, which is the opposite of what you said. You downgrade to a warning later. You game loss it this weekend so people get the message. This is how you do it. Because if it's a warning, then the message that is sent right away is it's not that big of a deal. If you game loss first, like, no, this is what you have to do, and then later, once people get used to it, you can be like, if you happen to forget because you copied over the wrong deck list, everyone knows this rule anyways. So we can do a warning, just like they did with misqueuing that they changed this year.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't think that any of your takes are unreasonable, by the way. It's just I was of the opinion that it is your responsibility to know what your opponent is playing and what is possible, and and from my perspective, I did not think that like it would be unreasonable for you to be able to track whether your opponent has Maestra in their lineup and be able to track what the possibilities of playing against that would entail. But I do understand the language barrier. I understand contacting a ton of people and that people make mistakes a lot. And I understand the admin portion of it. I'm just obviously under the opinion that it lies within the player's responsibility to do a lot of that stuff, even though most of the time it ends up falling on other people.
See, I like that you said that, because you're right that it is the player's responsibility to know that. So do you think that Hearthstone qualifier grinders are responsible people?
I mean, no, but they should be.
It's...
Yeah.
That is the truth.
I'm coming from a very idealistic way of thinking about tournaments when I am no longer a tournament player. So realistically, my opinion on the subject is probably not terribly relevant.
Remember that this is the same group of people that has strong opinions on the order in which you GG each other.
Yeah. I mean, this is how much of a debate sportsmanship is in Hearthstone. The fact that we debate about GG and all that stuff. But I mean, we've waxed poetic on that.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. You remember Kyle Knudsen, who was running the qualifiers when they first came out? He said the most frequent complaint he received was players getting GG'd first when they lost. The most frequent complaint. It blows my mind.
That's unreal to me. When
it's all too real to me. It's
unreal. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I always think of, you line up after the baseball game and you high five everyone and you say GG to everyone, good game or not. Like, and so for me, it's just so automatic that you just say GG afterwards. And I've had to train myself the other way to like not say it first if I win, because I don't want someone to yell at me. And it's very, but yeah, we shouldn't get into that argument again. Regarding,
I mean, now that you say that, I think I'm on the other side, because that's the completely idealistic way of thinking about how that actually goes, when the realistic way is people get really salty and when they lose and don't want to be doing that. And then when you're in that lineup where you're going and shaking hands, a lot of people are saying stuff under their breath in protest of having to do that activity.
Well, maybe I just, it fell on deaf ears to me and I didn't notice it. But regarding what you said with Orange's first line and the card shark or the rules shark thing, I think I do agree on that front. I understand that Orange is coming from a place of passion here, and as someone who also feels like this is a good sportsmanship thing, I understand that passion. But it's probably something we all have to get used to, is that that's not going to fall on very receptive ears when you use divisive language like that. And so when you're trying to put a take out there, you should probably make sure you're not coming off as attacking anyone, and that it's just like, hey, this would be a nice thing if everyone did that, be nice, rather than something that some people are going to get the impression of you're saying they're a bad person if you don't do it.
It's a tonal issue in a medium that uses no tone.
Yep. Leads to so
that was very
many arguments.
Articulate, Botticus. That was extremely articulate. I'm going to remember that. I foresee myself quoting that on a regular basis in the future, which probably means I need to recalibrate how much of my life is built around Twitter presence. Anyways, so also bans and penalties as an update. Remember that guy Jay we talked about last week, who streamed himself stream sniping? And also had a history of misogynistic comments and stream sniping and just not being a nice person. Well, the ban got upgraded from 4 months to indefinite, and his account got suspended for win trading, like his ladder account. So, karma's a thing. Sometimes instantly. There's a song about that. Good luck, Jay. And he's streaming himself on a Smurf, by the way, as of right now. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how long this goes. It's the Unstoppable Force versus the Immovable Object, except the Unstoppable Force is a sociopath and the Immovable Object is Blizzard HQ, so we'll see what happens. Moving on. The Vicious Syndicate report is out, and okay. Is the meta diverse? Yes, to an extent, but the rosy prognosis that we had before of the diversity of the meta, well, there's a little problem. Let me put this little problem up on screen just so we can all be on the same page here. So this is the top 1K ladder stats that we've got on screen here. This is a chart where it shows power and popularity. Is there any particular item that you see standing out here?
I don't know. Something seems like just a little bit of an outlier.
For
I
those
think I'm
wondering,
seeing the wrong thing on the screen, by the way, because you just have our show notes on the screen at the moment.
I do not.
Now you have.
Yeah, I didn't change anything. But anyway,
not showing his delay over there.
Oh, okay.
yes. So, the popularity graph and the power graph. So it's just along the bottom of the chart. In the top right corner, there's this deck called the Thief Rogue, the Maestra Legality deck. The deck list last week that was popularized with the double prep is incredibly powerful. It is the perfect 30, as they say. And so if you look, I'm going to look at current stats because I feel like doing that. If you look at Legend right now, at this exact moment at Legend rank, the past day, 37.1% of logged games are rogues. 37.1%. That is more than 1 out of 3. Now, that is not entirely Thief Rogue. It's 26.8% Thief Rogue, 8% Poison Rogue. Oh, good! The second most popular deck is also a rogue. So, Thief Rogue is diverse, because it plays cards from every class, and it is every class. But as of right now, at the very, very top of the metagame, there is a pretty serious distortion around one class, for a lot of reasons. Thief Rogue is just kind of good at everything, really, really high pressure on early game board decks, kind of has answers to everything, and it has Scabs, which is, a 7-mana unconditional board reset, a bunch of life, a bunch of free mana, and some 4/2s, because why not? And then second place is Poison Rogue, because Cloak, Scabs, we talked about that. The less time spent thinking about that, the better. I would imagine both of these decks will see some adjustment in the very near future. I will say, Thief Rogue doesn't feel as oppressive to play against as many other oppressive decks have in the past, at least from my perspective. I'm not sure if you two agree.
It depends. Am I facing down 2 4/5s on turn 2, or am I not? That's how oppressive or not it feels.
I mean, this is all our fault when you think about it.
What do we do?
I guess a little bit. Oh, we put out a Decksplanations
Our last episode was all about Maestra Rogue, and clearly all of our listeners are in top 1000 Legend. I mean,
if they weren't before, they are now. After the Decksplanations, how could they not be?
Yeah, that's our demographic, all top 1K Legend players. Yeah, honestly, kind of surprised to see that statistic that Thief Rogue is up there that high. But yeah, it's so strange to see a deck that technically has a large amount of randomness to it be doing as well as it's doing. I'm trying to remember the last time there was a deck that was kind of based around a somewhat random mechanic that used it as well to its advantage. The last one I can remember, and I know that there's been one since then, would be like a Deathstalker Rexar deck being as popular. I'm sure there's been something since then, but I mean, realistically, Thief Rogue has 4 cards that are somewhat random in the deck.
Wand Thief is pretty.
Oh, Wand Thief. Okay.
Wand Thief into Rune is a lot of random. Swashbuckler and Recon are the ones you're thinking of, but Wand Thief, some stuff gets pretty messed up there.
Okay, so like 6 cards. But it's kind of crazy how much randomness those 6 cards end up causing generally.
I have lost a game because I sent 12 damage face instead of killing a Wand Thief.
I mean, I don't know if I can trace that decision tree. Like, I understand the outcome meant they stepped the Wand Thief and some bad stuff went down.
Well, they scabs the Wand Thief.
Oh, I got good news to you. You didn't lose to the Wand Thief.
Well, I did to the maid spell that came off the Wand Thief.
But there's an important middle part of the story that we got to make sure we focus on. So, those of you old school Magic players, I'm talking like early 2000s. Psychotog was the deck at the time. Psychotog deck. And I remember there was this card called Upheaval that they printed. Blue as a color is great at dealing with spells. You can return a minion to the hand, but you can't really, like, kill anything. And this was a 6-mana spell that says everything that's in play, including mana crystal, including lands, it all goes back to everybody's hand. And the meme at the time on the message board that I was on, because, again, this was in the early 2000s, a long time ago, was, hey, everyone, you know what blue needs? A global reset. So I just think about that. You know what Rogue needs? An unconditional board reset. Let's just throw that in there. Let's see what happens. So, it's too good.
Yeah, imagine if Celestial Alignment Druid got to keep all of the excess mana that it had after you played Celestial Alignment. That's basically upheaval.
Yeah.
Oh, and it also returned, and it destroyed all their things back into their hand. It's like Vanish plus Celestial. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's kind of like Scabs. So, yeah, it's just... I understand the Wand Thief was the thing you saw before the last card. But without the circumstance of, let's reset the board, gain some life, make some 4/2s, and get a free overgrowth, that I don't know if the Wand Thief would have mattered as much.
I mean, there are other times where Wand Thieves got Potion of Illusion or whatever. I find myself often frustrated that I have to kill the higher power minion because that's the problem now, but I know the Wand Thief is going to be an issue later. And as a paladin, of course, mage spells are scary because transform effects. Yeah, Wand Thief is super spooky. I'm looking forward to core set, but in general, Scabs does that card need to make 2 4/2s? I think they could leave it as is, and it could not summon minions. No?
Nope. Okay. I don't know about you. The percentage of time that I get to attack with those 4/2s, I'm going to say like 15%. Let's say like 3 out of every 20 games I actually get to do anything with them. I don't care. I just don't want it to be at that point in the game. I don't.
So
I want it to be
turn
later.
8, turn 9?
Later. Not then. Not 7. More than 7. 8 seems okay. Like, you could do 9 if you wanted the card to be a real significant decision that you're making. 8 is fine. Let people play with the new cool legendaries. But the problem with Scabs is that it undoes what the other people's new cool legendaries are doing by just putting it back in their hand. So, I think the hero cards can be good cards for a little while. They can make it worse later if they need to make it worse later, but I think 8 would be a decent nudge, along with other stuff, because Scabs is a symptom of Rogue doing a lot of things right now. Like, Poison Rogue. Poison Rogue got a lot better. It's not just because of Scabs. Did Scabs make that deck better? Yes. If you come back at this and quote me and say, oh, Hat said that it wasn't because of Scabs, Scabs made the deck better, 1,000%. But immediately before this expansion, they nerfed Celestial Alignment, they nerfed the deck that played Glide, and they nerfed Octobot. So they slowed down or eliminated all the other anti-combo stuff, because Poison Rogue these days is not a weapon deck. The weapon is really just to enable Silverleaf Poison and Cutting class, so you draw through the deck, so that you get to garrote people to death from 30. It's just Garrote Rogue, but you don't have to think about it as much. And you don't have to worry about playing 3-mana Octobot. So all of these circumstances, combined with Alterac generally aiming to slow the meta down, made Poison Rogue really powerful, and they got Scabs. The Maestra Rogue deck, on the other hand, for any deck that wants to play a lot of early game minions, which is historically Poison Rogue's weakness. You know what is good against early game minions is a 0-mana 4/5 with Rush, combined with a Prize Plunderer or 2, or 3, or however many. So right now, Rogue kind of covers the early game, and the lack of early game decks means Poison Rogue is the quote-unquote late game, and it's just a little bit too good right now. There's some other stuff that they can nudge, but the discourse going on right now is around Knoll, maybe Scabs, though some people are saying they won't nerf him because it's a hero card. They don't want the hero cards to get worse right now. I buy that argument. I could see it. But if he also cost 8, we wouldn't take him out of a single deck list. He'd still be really strong. Same with Cariel, by the way, just throwing that out there while we're here. And Cloak of Shadows, maybe it only gives you stealth on your turn. Maybe that's a good nerf. Maybe just gives you stealth, and then you press enter, and the stealth goes away. I mean, you could make it cost 4, you could make it cost 5, or you could just make the stealth only in my turn. I think that's fair.
All right, you want to hear my solution?
Go ahead.
All right. Preparation. Reduce the cost of your next spell by 2, but not less than 1. Shadow Step. Return a minion you control to your hand. It costs 2 less, but not less than 1. I bet it makes Rogue. I bet it makes Rogue quite a bit worse. But
Wand
my guess
is a lot worse to Shadow Step. Burglar a lot worse to Shadow Step. Yeah.
Also, Prize Plunderer significantly worse to Shadow Step. You cannot prep the 2 mana, the whatever Eviscerate is now, whatever they call it.
Stab.
Yeah, you can't prep Stab for 0 mana. You can't prep. Is it Coercion? No, not Coercion.
Garrote.
No, the 2 mana card, the
Swindle
gets a card from another class. You can't prep Swindle.
Oh,
yeah.
Reconnaissance. Where did you get Coercion?
Whatever. Same
They're
thing.
both words with C's and R's. I don't know.
Look, man, I'm just saying, don't be able to reduce cards that should not be able to be reduced to 0 mana. Just make them reduced to 1. You could still have your... Honestly, like, people say that the 4/5s are scary, and it's definitely a very good card, but I'm very rarely scared of minions that give you board control early when it compares to massive mana cheating that lets you do more things in a turn than you should be able to do.
If we're talking about things that shouldn't cost 0, if I'm going to pick a place to start on that agenda, I'm going to say the card that Wild Panol in the Coin Concede Discord this week was described as the halfway point between Corridor Creeper and Mogu Flesh Shaper, and that just sets off a whole bunch of alarm bells. Like, it's just like, that's not the compromise that you want defining your standard format. And again, this deck doesn't feel quite as egregious when we think about the broken decks this year. Think about D6. When we think about 2 mana Lunacy Mage. When we think about Conviction Battlemaster. Think about basically all the mage decks, including the ones right now. I think that at least when you look at Thief Rogue, it feels like a minion deck at heart. And it is. It's a really powerful minion deck. It's very hard to consistently beat. But it doesn't feel quite as tilting to lose to, or at least it hasn't for me. But it's definitely too good. And Wild Panol, again, when the comparison of halfway between Mogu and Corridor Creeper makes sense, you gotta please change the card. I understand what you're saying, Botticus. I understand that, like, playing too much in a turn, I get it. But I would just start looking at what we're playing too much of on turns 1 and 2. That's where I would start.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is also very largely based on my deck selections that makes me think that the 4/5 does not feel as good or nearly as good as, like, when I was playing Mogu Flesh Shaper and when I was playing Corridor Creeper. Those cards felt unreasonable, like absolutely felt completely unreasonable. And I haven't been playing a ton of the 4/5, but when I have, it has not overwhelmed me with the amount of, like, brokenness that those other 2 cards have felt. And when I play against it, the decks that I play don't care a whole lot about a 4/5 rush even early in the game. So I think it's largely just that I have not been playing the decks that make me think that way. So
yeah, I don't know. Games where I face down double null, double agent, or just, 1 double agent plus 1 null. It's pretty tough when that's, all out there on turn 3. I think Corridor Creeper and Mogu Flesh Shaper both had other cards that were pretty silly with them. Like, along Corridor Creeper, we had Patches and Prince Keliseth. So it was like Prince Keliseth, Pirate, pull out Patches, your stuff dies, then Corridor Creeper. So there were, like, other things insane with it. And then the Flesh Shaper, of course, we were evolving it. That was silly. I think here it's kind of the same thing. Like, the null is silly because Rogue also has other crazy high tempo minions in the form of Prize Plunderer and Double Agent.
Yeah. Though keep in mind, the standard meta is just higher power overall now. I've beaten turn 2 double null multiple times, right? Like, it's just, there are just more things to do in each game. There's more player agency, there's more power in their removal tools, there are more swing turns. Corridor Creeper was printed in December 7th, 2017. Rush was not in the game. So you just played a free 5/5 and your opponent's like, well, my current plan is take 5. And that was kind of all that they did. So Mogu was at least in a more modern time of the game, but it was also a big part of Doom in the Tombs, which was unbalanced for 2 months. The team had no bandwidth because they were working on BGs. So it was just left in the game along with Desert Hare and Mutate and Evolve, and it just scammed early games in a really major way that you couldn't compete with except by counter scamming because no other class had that kind of power. There are other things going on that can respond to the power level of a couple 4 or 5s on turn 2 or 3. I'm glad the tools are in the game. I'm glad there are answers. It's still a little bit too good. But Corridor Creeper, contextually at the time, you're talking about it being in a patches deck. That's correct, but it was in Big Spell Mage too. Because you played a bunch of removal, then after you killed all their stuff, you just plopped down your Arcane Tyrants and Corridor Creepers and look at me. I am the minion deck now.
Well, but that was also because of patches, right? You cleared their patches so that you could play your Corridor Creeper.
And also, Corridor Creeper was a neutral, so everybody did that. At least Wild Paw Knoll makes you play Maestra, makes you play exclusively rogue cards, and can be misplayed to the point where it's not that great. Whereas Corridor Creeper, the decision you need to make was, do I keep this in my mulligan? By the way, the answer is yes, you do. And that was the entire play skill around the card in all 9 classes. So, it's not quite the same, but they did need to change. Probably 2 cards in Rogue. 1 for Poison, one for Maestra. And then, if they happen to nudge Scabs to 8, and also Carriel to 8, and I'd be fine with that. And they can make a couple other changes if they need to, but the meta is still, it feels really open, it feels really diverse, there are a lot of really interesting experiments going on. I was surprised to see the chart because it didn't feel that unbalanced in my personal experience, but also I'm not surprised because there have been so many games where I felt like you did, El, where I felt like by not killing a 1-2, that I was sacrificing my chances to win the game.
Well, I think also Jay Correct makes a great point. It probably feels way more balanced in terms of class diversity because at the starting screen, who knows what's happening? Every starting screen, you're like, oh, I'm playing against a paladin this game. Oh, I'm playing against a warlock and then a priest. And then all of them eventually, just turn into Wildpaw Knoll rogue decks. But at least at one point, and also they play so many cards from other classes, it just feels like you're playing against a wide variety of classes. You get to see all of the cards.
Yeah, I had a banger tweet last week where I took a picture on HSR where the top three decks, the only decks in tier 1 and top 1k, were 3 rogue decks, including Thief Rogue. I said, wow, all 10 classes in tier 1. Got a bunch of engagement on that one. It's pretty good. It's a fun time in Hearthstone, even though they'll probably nudge some stuff. So, the expectation, as of right now, that is not set by Blizzard, but set by the community amongst itself, so that we can be disappointed by something that was not told to us, is that there will probably be a patch next week. That's kind of the guess right now, is that they're usually, the way the timeline goes, they have the meeting at the beginning of the week when they get back, and they usually have a patch window at the beginning of the post-holiday period, because usually they try and patch right before and right after, and they know they're going to need to have a window to make some balance adjustments. So almost always, second week of January, they have the opportunity to do that, because they make the decision by Tuesday or Wednesday. They give the localization team about 3 days to translate it all, put it together into the patch notes, publish those on Monday, put it into the game on Tuesday. We are due for the 0.2 patch, which is the Battlegrounds release, right? The Battlegrounds expansion equivalent, where something really big happens for BGs. So, a bunch of BG players have been making cryptic tweets today. I am not sure if that's going to happen. That's what we're currently expecting to happen, but it is not based on any official news. So, could be balance changes next week. There might not be. We'll see what happens. We'll see. But yeah, it's some stuff is going to happen. By the way, this is the tournament section, so we're gonna just keep on going. The first round of post Alterac qualifiers is happening at the moment, and let's take a live look in because I can do that thanks to Donkey.top, which is my favorite Hearthstone website among many, but easily at the moment it's my favorite. So looking at the first qualifier, there are 4 5-0 players, including Glee from Team Swagoi, 5-0. Glee is not playing Paladin, to my surprise. Poison Rogue, Quest Shaman, and a very interesting Beast Druid list. Yep, looks like the No Hands Gamer Beast Druid list. Noise84 Mond is playing a Mozaki Mage, Poison Rogue, and Face Hunter. Sausage Egg, Now I'm Hungry, is playing Maestra Rogue, Beast Druid with Mulverick and Capture Coldtooth Mine, and Libram Paladin. And CP List is playing Mozaki Mage, Brute DH, and Garrote Rogue. Fascinating. Very interesting. So, curious to see what the rest of the meta ends up looking like. We will talk about the qualifier results next week. Last piece of tournament news before we go into a large mailbag we definitely don't have time for, we're going to try and do it anyways, is the Concede Listener Series has concluded for our first inaugural Mercenaries tournament. I Am Shadow won the EU bracket, and Nomalith won the Americas bracket. Congratulations to both of you, I Am Shadow and Nomalith. Hooray! Woo! Very exciting. And now it's time for a very large mailbag. Let's go to Decksplanations.
Like, none of us expected those first 2 segments to last as long as they did, so we're probably going to run along with this mailbag.
I did.
Yeah, we do this every episode, so like whatever.
All right, Bot, why don't you kick us off at the start?
I just want to say, Hat did not think that the Maestra change was going to take up a lot of time on the podcast, and oops. I definitely thought it would. So.
But I guess I'm a dumb person. What do you want?
You're not dumb. Don't say that about yourself. You just were unaware of the overreaching implications of that occurring. So we will let's start it off. We got a couple different kind of sections of topics. I'm going to cover the first part here. We're going to look back at some things to start off, and we had a great question from Smiley Chris. What is your favorite Hearthstone thing from 2021? Can be a card, mode, event, person, or etc., etc., etc. Which of you has your answer prepared for this?
Yeah, preparing. That's not a thing we do.
Yeah, we were definitely ready to answer these questions.
So there are a lot of good things that happened to Hearthstone this year. So many answers. The introduction of Guff Rune Totem as a character. The hiring of Matt London and the cohesive narrative that he was able to weave over the course of the year was really, really excellent. I think the core set was a huge deal. It was a really huge deal.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that really, really big deal. Mercenaries came out this year, and with the ups and downs, I still think there's a lot of depth and nuance there, but I'm going to have to go with the community team. The increased communication overall is the same thing that I said last year, but the community team has gotten so great. Deck Tech does amazing work, and Alkali Lake has been an unbelievable hire who has really just put a lot of energy back into the game in a really visible and meaningful way. The thing that makes Hearthstone special for me is the people, and I would say that. But the real answer, the interview we had with Ben Lee on episode 300. The game director talked to us here on our podcast. He doesn't do that. He gave us a card reveal. It was so good they had to nerf it. They had to nerf it.
100% like my highlight for 2021 is having Ben Lee on the show and then also having them give us a card reveal, it just felt like a huge gift given to us from the team, and greatly appreciate that.
We had to give back 25% of the life. The gift they gave us was too good. They gave us Touch of the Nathrism, and we had to give a little back. And so, I mean, thanks Blizzard.
So much has happened in the past year. Honestly, one of the best years for the game in general, I would say. I was going to say, same as you, Hat, that the hiring of Alkali Lake has been insane. It just so much communication, all of that. I completely forgot that the Ben Lee interview was last year. It's just, the last couple of years have been a decade. So I was thinking that was earlier than that. I almost need to go like favorite thing for each of these, right? Person, Alkali, event, the card reveal and interview with Ben Lee. Mode, I think it was really cool to get Mercenaries. Card, core set, I don't know.
I mean, I think core set was a close number too. Just I think the amount that it gives back, it's kind of it's almost unrecognizable, I think, to players like us who generally have mostly, if not fully complete collections of everything, to realize how big of an impact that actually, I think, had on the overall game. I think that the core set is a huge win, and I'm excited to see what they do to make changes to it in upcoming year.
Yeah, it's been a pretty special year of Hearthstone, all things considered. When I was thinking about this on my way home, because I saw the questions on Twitter of the best year Hearthstone's ever had. From a constructed perspective, outside of the year that Hearthstone launched, I think it's hard to argue against the year that we're in now. From a constructed standard perspective. Constructed wild perspective, you probably have a lot of opinions. From other perspectives, it's the single most important post-launch event of Hearthstone. There are two possible options. The release of the mobile client or the launch of Battlegrounds. The fact that those are even close is crazy. And I think Battlegrounds is probably better, which is also crazy, because launching a mobile client, cross-collection mobile client, for any game is a huge, huge deal. But Battlegrounds is not just a new game and a new way to play, it is the most popular mode in Hearthstone. It is the number one mode. And it is exceptional, and it's basically completely free, and it's on top of an already amazing game that all of us play so much we don't have time for BGs. That is the most important single event in Hearthstone's history outside of the launch, I think. So if you're a BGs player, you can't really say anything other than that time. And speaking as a person that, I mean, Bot, you and I, we got out of line and got back in line. Like, BGs is amazing. It's amazing. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. So it's really important. But from a standard perspective, how they have built standard this year, I am hard-pressed to think of a 3 expansion era that was anywhere near this level of consistent quality and consistent care, both before release, during, and after.
I mean, especially when you compare it to the previous year. That started with Ashes of Outland.
Ashes of Outliers. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
There was also Galakron Shaman.
That was the year prior to that. That was 2019.
Oh, that was Descent of Dragons.
That was Descent of Dragons.
There was a rough patch followed by this year, which I think was a home run.
This is the only year where I think you can say all 3 sets were relatively consistently balanced. Barons, I think, was the era where I felt the least connected with the game because it was designed in a way, it was specifically meant to be lower power, minion focused, and just a more plotting pace. And so, that didn't end up working for me outside of Rogue, but some people really, really loved it. But it's the only year I can think of where they very clearly set targets for what they wanted to do, and then that was the thing that happened. Because in the past, they've set these targets, and then different things have happened. They didn't make Q-Block in testing. No, that was not something that they just had ready. Someone figured that out eventually, and it's like, what the hell is this? But it seemed very clear that what they wanted to happen, what did happen, is actually what came to pass.
Yeah, and I was a big fan of Baron's Warrior. Like, that was a great time for me. Really glad that I got to enjoy that. Probably wouldn't have been great to do that all year, but they've hit their stride every time, with a few things that definitely have been frustrating with the mages and Cantor's Flow stuff, right? But they've done so many balance changes too, that it feels like we didn't have to go more than a few weeks of something that we didn't like super much. And yeah, personally, Alterac has just been the pinnacle, right?
Oh, I love this launch so much. Every expansion we say, this is our favorite launch ever, and then it just keeps happening, but like, Alterac is so good.
Yeah. Because it's really easy for 6 sets to just be bursting at the seams powerful and just way too much. And yes, there's powerful decks, and I do think there's outliers, and I do think things need to be balanced. But I don't know, thinking about this compared to Q Block, I'm happier.
Yeah.
To compare this to Kobolds.
Yeah, I mean, compare this year to most any other year, and it's a very favorable comparison for this year. But
yeah.
All right.
You look.
Next question. Oh, go ahead. You want to?
It's not important. No.
All right.
Don't let me make tangents. Edelweiss, that's your stinger. I'm marking this down.
All right. From Dr. Boomer. Now that we are nearing the completion of the Mercenaries storylines, do you prefer years where expansions have had a year-long theme/overarching story? Examples, Rise of Shadows, Uldum, Descent of Dragons, or expansions that are more of a mismatch? So for me, I really like kind of what they're doing. I really liked the whole idea of the theme from Rise of Shadows, Uldum, and Descent of Dragons. I really like that idea, and while the cards didn't necessarily line up in a way that that made for a balanced format, I thought that the idea of it, and also during that period, we got some of the best audio, like the theme songs for those expansions are among the top of all, expansion songs that have been played. So, yeah, I really liked this year how it had the theme of the Mercenaries. I liked the theme of having like a consistent storyline throughout that, and I hope that they continue to do something similar to that, because I think that while lore may not be my most prominent thing that I enjoy about something, I think it provides a lot of extra stuff at not a giant cost to them to include.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of the year-long theme. I think maybe some concerns before came out of it because of, some of the bad taste lackeys left in our mouth when it came to the year-long theme. But when they do it all right, I think that I do prefer it more. Like, just considering last year was Ashes, Scholomance, Dark Moon Fair. Like, those were cool, but it just doesn't feel as, I don't know, satisfying is not quite the word I was gratifying. Yeah, to come to the conclusion as when you've got this year-long thing and you finally get the culmination at the end. So I always prefer that, and I know for myself designing, I prefer a start with the lore and then come up with the designs based on the lore. So yeah, big fan of the story, and I think the writers for the story have been knocking it out of the park.
Matt London, he's the best. I'm not really much of a lore guy, or at least I tell myself that. What I liked about this year is that I didn't need to follow the story, because the part that resonated with me was the characters. The characters being consistent and recognizable this year, and then next year they will be different characters. Love that. Big fan. Because I don't think they're not going to do what Magic did with the Planeswalkers, where like every set is a Jace set now, and it's just Jaces everywhere. I don't need that. I'm all good. right? Like 3 sets of characters, 3 sets of Rokara, and Craps has been saying in chat, the one problem that I think I agree is that you have 3 different marquee legendaries in Standard that all have the same name for every single class. So, like, when you say that Scabs is good, which one? You gotta be clear. For example, or Tamsin is probably the one that comes up the most. But I really like the characters being identifiable. At the beginning of the year, it's like, who are these people? And the end of the year, it's like, oh, I know them. And just seeing them in different spots on the different cards where they're pictured and feeling like you get to see what iteration they take on this character this time has been really satisfying. But when you look at Rise through Galakron's Awakening, that wasn't just the characters. Like, I loved seeing the League and the League of Evil and the League of Explorers coming back, but where the story itself felt a little forced. Like, I didn't need to know the specific plot points. I just want, like, the tone piece and the characters. And that's really what I'm looking for. I don't care if it ends up being a year like, Witchwood, Boomsday, Rosticon, or whatever, where there's no thematic connection. It doesn't make it worse, but having consistent pieces that we can connect with over the course of a year, I think does make it better.
And I wonder if it's good to have that on and off in terms of years, of like 1 year where they're not connected, 1 year where they are, so that every standard, of which encapsulates 2 years, has some cards from a not interconnected and some from a connected, because then you won't ever have like these 2 years of story competing.
All right. Real talk.
All right.
We have way too many questions in here. Just, hold on. I'm marking this down. I'm just going to go through and just cut some stuff. So if you asked a question and it didn't get asked, we appreciate you. Thank you. But we have 30 minutes and 30 questions, and that's just not going to happen. So, yeah, we're gonna cut some stuff.
Especially questions like that, which will take us forever to answer.
Yeah. Let's ask this next one. Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to ask this next one because I really like this question. From Adam West, Adam Went OH. What is your milestone or HS achievement you're most proud of, big or small? For me, the biggest achievement in Hearthstone I have achieved was winning the first Concede listener series. Actually, was it League back then? Whatever it was.
Yes.
It got me on the show, and it's been one of the best experiences in Hearthstone that I could have had. Just being on the show and getting to hang out with Hat for over 4 years now, and Edelweiss more recently, and chat and all the coachings I've done, just getting to get on the show is huge. And I'm just really happy that it happened.
I think similar line for me, it was qualifying for HCT Hearthstone Championship Tour, for those who don't remember. Rio, or Copa America, which was totally insane. Back then, it was like the last year of HCT, and they flew me out to Rio, and I hung out with Rage and Muzzy and Zelay and Board Control and FaZe, just like all these players. I actually hung out with the Brazilian and Latin American crew a lot, which was nice, where I first met Nayara as well. And tying into what Bot was saying, that qualification was, I think, what first got me as a guest on this show. I think that was the beginnings. It's also what got me on Swagoi Gaming.
Seems pretty cool. I'm kind of still on the getting to talk to Ben Lee on my show thing. And also, like, I don't know. I'm not going to say 2021 was a good year, but I'm going to say that for me personally, it was pretty all right brand-wise. I mean, we talked about this last year, too, of the silver lining and all that. Things were worse the last time that we answered this question, and so the answer was a little darker. But now, I mean, I'm a host on The Angry Chicken, which is the first Hearthstone podcast I ever listened to. I made a different new Hearthstone podcast, Fish Syndicate, which is pretty cool. We talked to Ben Lee on this show. And I like this year as well. This is the first year that I was in double-digit Legend multiple times. And that's been pretty rad. But also, like, I still feel weird about it. Because as I've noticed that this is something that, the people that I talk to that are regularly in those ranks too, the higher rank you are, the more mistakes you notice. So it just constantly feels like as I improve more as a player that I just realize that I'm worse, which is not what's happening, but it's how the human mind works. That, like, if I'm noticing more mistakes, it must mean that I'm worse, but the scale is actually noticing them. But, I'm in the grand scheme of things, like, finishing top 50 last month, that's pretty rad. Like, that's pretty, I'm proud of myself for doing that. And so my New Year's resolution for this year is to see a single-digit legend number next to my name. I want to see a single-digit legend number. I want to do that. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, I tend to not push for those big legend numbers because I have an obsession with deck building. And so we have a couple of questions here on deck building. And the thing about deck building, you have to be ready to lose a lot. And I probably wouldn't lose as much if my handle was no hands gamer. Then I probably wouldn't lose so much. But I usually try some pretty out there stuff. We have a question here from Mathemagical. As someone who has attempted to build novel decks and failed miserably almost every time, how do you go about building a deck? So for me, I think first about either something that I think is really cool that I want to try, something that's changed, like, they just changed stuff with the Hero Power Mage, so build around that. Or what often ends up being more successful, what's something I can do to try and beat this thing that I'm seeing? And reason why I say that's usually more successful is because then you're like targeting something that's popular. And from there, I generally figure out sort of what is my game plan. A deck always needs a game plan. You can't just like throw a bunch of cards together and see what sticks. I guess you can. That's called Jund in Magic, or it's just you play the good cards, right? But generally, you got to have some kind of game plan in mind and focus your stuff around that game plan. You need enough card draw to make sure that you're consistent. So when I was building a warrior deck, I was like, okay, what's my card draw engine? A lot of times I build around the card draw engine. I tried doing Watley. Watley's too slow right now. And so I switched to cutting class. And so the conditioning warrior I had didn't work out, and I swapped it to more of a cutting class aggro warrior, topping out at the Rakara hero. One of the themes that I wanted to make sure happened was Imprison Gennarg into Defias Cannoneer on 3 is a very strong play. So I often sort of create packages and will add or remove certain packages of cards that have synergies together. To take a look at the hand buff Paladin that I made, which ended up being more successful than the Warrior. The Warrior got me to Legend, but the hand buff Paladin has been consistent. One of the core packages I had was Vindicator, which draws the spell that costs 3 mana or less from your deck, makes it 0 mana that turn, and Hand of Adal / Noble Mount. I knew I wanted to be playing Noble Mount, particularly on Trog, because Trog is good. And that's kind of the early game. A lot of times what happens with a hand buff deck is you run out of cards. And so by making sure that I have card draw on the top end with Varian and card draw on the low end with Vindicators, and I was initially running 1 copy of the Knight of Anointment, ended up cutting those for Broomstick, but making sure that you have that card draw just keeps things consistent. So you can have different game plans for different matchups, but you have to have a clear picture of what your deck is trying to do in various matchups, or if it's an aggressive deck, just, the main, these are the things I'm looking to do on curve. But yeah, those in very basic, as much as I can fit in just like this little answer to a question, I think those are sort of the core elements for me.
You know how I go about building a deck?
You
wait for someone else to do
it. No, I open up a new tab on my browser. I go to my favorites. I have hsreplay.net. I pick the class that I'm trying to look for. I view decks, and then I look at, oh, this has a card I want to play, and then I copy that deck into my thing, and that's how it gets built.
That's usually what I do too.
It's not very helpful. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's okay so it is reasonable to say that the communal wisdom is usually better than the individual wisdom. It is reasonable to say that if you want to win more, you should probably pick a deck that's been refined, that there's data on, because data makes decks better and better decks win more. Yes, you can come up with the thing that becomes a thing, but usually that's not how that works. However, I have been doing a little bit of deck refinement the past couple seasons, and this is a question from Dusty Hartshorn. Can you explain your process for finding new cards for a deck? How do you settle on the 29th or 30th card for a deck? And what Edelweiss said is very important. 1, add more draw. 2, lower the curve. 3, keep doing that. Eventually, you'll run out of draw cards and the curve will be low enough that you can consistently play stuff. Stop. That's the deck. And then from there, figure out what cards don't matter, like aren't good when you play them on curve, but probably lower the curve and add some draw. Because every Hearthstone deck in history, the first version is too heavy, and then people lower the curve and add some draw and they get better. And if you don't have draw to add, the deck probably isn't good enough right now, which is what the situation is with Control Warrior. There's just not enough. And then they print some more in the mini set, and they give us Primal Dungeoneer or whatever, and then we go about our business.
Yeah, and I have a bad habit, I think, particularly when it comes to 30th cards. I just type legendary into the search bar, and I look at the legendaries because I'm so inclined to go, well, I only get one of it anyway, right? All the other things I have 2 ofs. So if I only get a 1 of anyway, let me take a look at my cards that I can always only run 1 of them. And this is how we end up in situations where someone was like, that deck is super spicy and super expensive.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't.
When I'm building a deck in a brand new format, it's usually like when there's no obviously data. It's usually you type in a word into a search bar based on the deck that you're trying to build. You add all the cards that make sense, and then you just try to figure out the other just good stuff that you can add with it. But that usually doesn't pan out super well for me.
So I've got a slightly different take on this problem. When you have somewhere between 28 and 29 cards, don't filter by legendary. Filter for 2 drops. You probably want more 2 drops in your deck. Probably add some 2s. It's...
Okay, probably. Another way is to look at, what are the matchups that you've been struggling with, and how can you come up with solutions for that. So I recently was really having a rough time with Druid, and okay, what's good against Druid and these other board-based things? Well, it seems like having double Broomstick is pretty good for the deck, and I felt pretty great about having double Broomstick in the deck. Isn't always quite enough. Well, now that I've already got double Broomstick in the deck, adding Lord Barov is something I'm experimenting with, because Barov gets a lot better when you have double Broomstick.
Yeah, it's... Okay, hold on. There's a difference between searching for legendary versus adding Lord Barov. Barov's kind of a known quantity and has been defining standard since he was printed a while ago. Going to be one of the biggest losses in rotation for Paladin and also Warrior decks. But there are a lot of legendaries out there that are not Lord Barov. And you may recall that the broken version of Thief Rogue came about when someone cut Jandis, a 6-mana card, for Preparation, a negative 2-mana card. Lower the curve. So, just throwing that out there. Alright, we've got some questions about Standard, so I'm going to make this transition quickly so we can get through this stuff. I'm going to answer these fairly fast, but I will flip to my co-host because they're smart. Forest Base asks, what if Imp Swarm made the Tamsin Dread Imps, which are the 3/3s instead of Flame Imps? I'm going to answer a different question than the one you asked for, so I'm going to answer, what would it take to make Zoo good? The answer is Doomguard. That is the short answer. I would like to have Voidwalker back. The second they rotated Doomguard, Zoo wasn't good unless it was sheeting out Flesh Giants with Darkglare, then they nerfed that a bunch of times. It was Doomguard. Because Zoo doesn't make sense in a post-rush world. Because you are playing minions and passing, and you can add more rush minions to Zoo if you want to. But it needs to be rush resilient or mana cheaty or something, because it doesn't have Doomguard. Because Doomguard was, and combined with Soulfire to a degree, was how it played on curve but still stayed ahead of the opponent and applied pressure, because Doomguard was hard to trade into and was an immediate source of damage. Card is cracked. Card is completely insane. And so that is the thing that Zoo really needs. But if you want to make Zoo good now without bringing Doomguard back, look at something like Stormwind Taunt Druid. It's actually a pretty Zoo-ish deck. A lot of 1s and 2s, a lot of neutrals, not a ton of tribal synergy, mostly based around the taunt mechanic. If taunt said demon instead, like whatever, sure. And then it has board buffs instead of damage. Some variant of that would make a lot of sense if you make the deck a little bit more resilient, because otherwise you have to make it better at taking the opponent off the board and surviving removal. And Zoo just hasn't we haven't had a reason to play the Zoo that isn't Flesh Giant since Doomguard rotated. And so you need to have some kind of payoff that makes the board really good, but also not die to the common things that people are playing to deal with the other board-based decks. Thoughts?
Just let me see if I understand the question. If we changed Imp Swarm, instead of making 2 1/1s, it would make 2 3/3s to start out. Would that make Zoo
No,
good?
that's Wicked Shipment. That's Wicked Shipment. Imp Swarm is the ranked spell. It's 2 mana for a 3/2. Rank 2 at 5 mana is 2 mana for 2 3/2s. At 10 mana, it's 2 mana for 3 3/2s.
So if it made 2
3
mana
3s
make
instead
a
of 3
3/3?
3s. Yeah.
Oh.
Wouldn't
Okay.
matter.
No. I thought I was thinking of a different card, because if it was 1 mana make 2 3/3s, yes, it would make Zoo good.
No, that's Wicked Shipment.
It would also make Handlock good and Questlock good and every Warlock deck good, because 1 mana 2 3/3s would be way too good.
Yeah. You know what else? Cat. Cat. All right. So, thank you, Forrest. Moving on to the next question. What do you think of this idea from the content creator and the competitive point of view? Every 2 weeks, they add 1 to 2 cards from the upcoming mini set as a preview, then they get replaced. So, every time highly invested players send in an idea about constantly shifting the standard format, I understand where this is coming from. You're going to alienate every casual player to the game. And this is what we've seen happen on I remember in particular Galakron's Awakening. Balance patch, weaken new cards, weaken new cards, weaken new cards, weaken new cards. It was 6 different standard metas in 6 weeks. It was impossible to keep up with. I felt overwhelmed with the amount of change. I'm pretty wired into Hearthstone. I think that's fair to say. I'm pretty connected to what's going on, and I felt overwhelmed. So I don't know what a casual player thought of at that point. The things you have to do to keep highly engaged players constantly interested are completely alien to anyone that is playing slightly more casually. I'm okay with being a little bored in the 4th month, and I don't want them to create this kind of constant churn that makes a meta impossible to figure out.
It almost already feels like they do this because they nerf cards what feels like every 2 weeks, which makes 1 to 2 cards that were not quite good enough before the nerfs good enough to play, and it's almost like they're adding 1 to 2 cards, if not more, every couple weeks. So yeah. I don't know that this is necessary based on their current strategy for, nerfing and buffing cards.
There are 6 changes every expansion. Expansion release. Within 2 weeks of the expansion, there's a window. A month after that, there's a window. Mini-set release within 2 weeks of mini-set, and then the pre-patch for the following expansion. 6 changes to every expansion cycle. That's a lot. That's a lot of movement. And sometimes they do more. In Stormwind, they actually were almost there, but then they did one more extra change where they deleted Stealer, which it turns out was a huge deal, even though it was just deleting Stealer and moving it to a 6-mana 4/6, and also giving an extra mana to Flesh Giant. It made the meta really different because of how much D6 was being played at higher ranks, even though it was only changing a couple cards. So, totally something that you really have to be aware of is how much pressure you're putting on your players to stay constantly engaged, or how much flexibility and leeway you give them to be involved at their own pace. So you got to be really, really careful about making too many changes too fast. Little Robotussin 1 asked, do quests stink? No, they don't. Some people don't like them, but it's not a fundamentally flawed mechanic. It is okay for classes to immediately get a 1-mana card that costs them a card in their opener, but gives them a different way to play the game. I think it's cool and it's fun. Some of the quest decks are really great, and if they're overpowered, make the cards worse.
I think quest lines were on average better than previous quests because of the rewards that you get along the way. I think that was actually a good change. But then, yeah, just balancing them so they're in line. There aren't really quests, like a ton of quest decks that are in the top tier right now. Like, there's a lot of stuff fighting for contention. I think Quest Shaman is a pretty decent shaman. I think some people, I mean, we were playing Quest Druid, but now that other druids put taunts in the way, that's not such a great idea anymore. But like, they were strong for a while, and now that has changed, and I think that's fine. But it's great for some people to be able to have this guideline of, okay, how do I build a deck? Well, what does this quest say? Let me put in the quest, and then put in these other cards that help complete the quest, and there you've got a deck. I know Pirate Warrior isn't necessarily a great experience to play against, but I think it's really helpful for a lot of people that are working on collections, and I think it was said somewhere that it's really good for learning fundamentals, that one in particular.
Yeah. There are very few cards that are fundamentally flawed. The only ones I can think of say start of game on them. So, you can't fix those. But you gotta work for the quest, and if they're too good, make them worse. But Little Robotussin's in the chat, he said he just likes the meme of, hey, quest stink. Kibler has indeed created a great meme meta. The next question is more of the same. Weston playing.
Wait a second. I mean, essentially, quests say start of the game, draw this 1-mana card and replace it with
but it doesn't card. It doesn't do the. It's like if the quest completed
yes,
on turn 1.
I get it.
Yes.
I get it. I'm just
don't
saying.
Meme on me, Botticus. We gotta hurry. We gotta go. So. Do you think, Weston Playing asked, do you think hero cards are healthy for the game? Many of them have become auto-includes in their respective classes, oftentimes irrespective of deck strategy or becoming a dominant element of the class. Make those cards worse! If they're too good, make them worse. It's not, there's no part of the card that is overpowered inherently. If the cards are too good, make them worse. It is very important to separate design and tuning. Hearthstone players look for patterns because Hearthstone is a game about patterns, and strategy games are about identifying patterns and following general rules and guidelines, and then knowing when to break them is a sign of a really great player. But this means when Hearthstone players see overpowered cards, they assume they build patterns around the overpowered card and say, well, the things inside this bubble must be too good. No one's complaining about Zyrella. No one's complaining about Rokara. Magister Dawngrass, the buff is cool. But it's Scabs, Cario, Tamsin sometimes, and Kurtrus is something that we're going to hear about as soon as DH gets good. It's hero cards are fine. You can do whatever you want with hero cards. There's no required text. They can be totally fine. They can be unplayably bad. So, the hero cards we have right now were designed to be good. They are. Some of them missed a little high. They'll rein them in. I agree that I don't like the idea that Dreadlich Tamsin is played in handlock because the downside of losing the tap doesn't matter because the card is so efficient. Make it to the point where it's actually a choice. But I don't think that hero cards are inherently unhealthy.
I think hero cards are very healthy for the game overall, irrespective of balance, because it gives them the option to make a class play differently in a very major way compared to just a card in the deck. And I think that is a beneficial thing for maybe not necessarily the ability to balance that class, because I do think that there have been balance issues with them. But overall, I think hero cards get people excited to play classes that maybe they were not traditionally excited to play. I think it gives a lot of health to the variety of what the game can offer based on different hero cards.
Although, I don't think Scabs gives Rogue a different way to play. It just makes the way they play better.
There are always exceptions to the rule. We just won't just not cover that. Although, I mean, Scabs would be a lot of fun to play if the thing that really mattered was the hero power making a card cost 2 mana less, because that is fun when it's not abused. But it's going to get abused. So
it's getting abused right now. Listen, if Vanish is the bank robber, then the hero power is the driver. Like there's no innocence here when you are using the hero power to reduce a guild traitor so you can garrote for 12. Like that's not the good guy here. And the final question in this section from Random Dude on Twitter: do you think Hearthstone can ever get away from its glaring issues of zero-cost cards, mana cheat and reduction, and too much draw discover? It feels like dead turns don't exist anymore because of mass resource generation capabilities that didn't used to exist, thanks. I'm glad you asked this, because if you think of these things as glaring problems, then you need to reevaluate your relationship with the game. Dead turns suck. If you go back and play Classic, and your opponent has a Savannah Highman in play, and you top deck an Argent Squire, and you leave the game, that's not a good experience. It's not something you want. I'm glad players have more agency. I'm glad there's more stuff to do. It is a different game than it used to be. It is not a worse game. Zero-cost cards are not inherently a problem. Too many of them are a problem. Octobot at 2 and Rod at 3 are a problem. That's a tuning issue. They fixed it. Rod is dead. Owl TK is dead. Mana cheat and reduction. Mana cheat was in Classic Hearthstone, Innervate, Preparation, Shadow Step. We're in the base set of Hearthstone. It's always been a part of the game. Too much draw and discover is entirely a question of opinion, but they've made discover so much less prevalent and so much worse in the effect. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza was a card we were playing with this time last year. We don't got DQA no more. We don't got Galakron draw 4, they cost 0 no more. It's that stuff isn't happening anymore. They brought that in. There's a little bit too much both draw in the combo stuff. They're aware of it. They nerfed most of it. They missed a couple. They're going to come back for it, don't you worry. But I don't want dead turns. I want turns where I do stuff. Not doing stuff sucks. It's not great. And drawing cards is not really mass resource generation. It's resource churn. You get to move through your deck, but then you can run out of cards and you can lose in fatigue. I've had a bunch of games in THL yesterday. Double fatigue mirror matches. Playing FeldDH. We both went to fatigue. I lost to an Illidari Studies card because I misplayed. And I found the misplay earlier in the game. I didn't lose the generation, I lost because I made a mistake. So, if you have the perspective that Hearthstone has fundamental flaws right now and you aren't enjoying it, you are entitled to that opinion, but I encourage you to use that opinion to drive you to the action of playing less of the game, because it's not going to make you happy. I don't share this opinion. I think Hearthstone is better now than it's been in a long time, if ever. So if this is your opinion, you got to use that to give yourself some space from the game to see if your mind changes, or if it's just time for you to move on.
Yeah, and I think that change in the game is part of the reason I've been pulled in so much more. The consistent updates as well, but there was a period where I was doing a bunch of Magic drafts alongside as well, and Hearthstone has gotten more engaging, and anytime I get mana flooded or mana screwed in Magic, that's dead turns, right? It's not fun. So I remember dead turns, and I don't like it. So, yeah, it might not be a direction that works for everyone. And certainly we've seen a lot of people leave the game. That's their right. They've been for that and other competitive reasons. But I don't doubt that some of the household names that used to be household names in competitive Hearthstone left as well because they felt like Hearthstone wasn't the same game.
But I want to look forward to my turns. I don't want to dread drawing my card and knowing that I'm not going to be able to do anything. And largely that happens when there are imbalances in the game, which they have been addressing consistently. So I'm hopeful for the future, and I like where we're at right now.
Yep. Let's talk about mercenaries real quick. Edelweiss is you.
So, I guess, yeah, mercenaries is me, huh?
I'll chime in. I'll chime. There'll be some chiming.
So we've got a question here. Curious what y'all think about Mercenaries now that we're a few months away from its initial release. There was hype over a couple tournaments, but the competitive Mercenary scene hasn't really lit up, and it's not a popular streaming mode. What is the future of this mode, and how do you think it could be improved, if indeed Blizzard wants it to be competitive or a popular mainstay mode? Hearthstone. I think the fact that they have dedicated team to it and are continuing to work on things means that they do want it to be a popular mainstay mode, right? It has its own button, so that's certainly a goal. It is not put under the modes button. I personally am playing less of it because standard is still my main mode, and that's not going to change. I'm having a ton of fun with Alterac, but I'm trying not to fall too far behind in Mercenaries, and I suspect when we get to that last month of the season time, I'll be playing a lot more Mercenaries, probably streaming more Mercenaries, because it's nice to have a fallback when you're kind of not feeling the constructed Hearthstone. I think competitive is really interesting. It definitely could use some help in terms of like when new mercenaries come out. The equipment change that they've made is good, but in general, it always feels bad now that we're after release that anytime new mercenaries come out, since there's not too many, it's not like there's a new kind of pack. And so getting packs is really not efficient for getting coins for new mercenaries. And I think that is like the number one feels bad thing for me, is that it's really hard to get coins for new mercenaries short of grinding. That's the number one barrier for me, because I just want to be able to make my new mercs I want them to be good, and when they're good, that means that you want to be able to play them in PvP, and it's just a pretty big barrier anytime a new mercenary comes out to get them into PvP viability. So yeah, I am excited for them to continue iterating. I also think it could be really cool if they used it as a mode to add stuff from other IPs. Having Diablo in there is cool. I think it'd be sweet to also add StarCraft stuff. I know they've said no promises on that front in terms of putting things from other IPs, but I don't really play Heroes of the Storm, so it'd be cool for me if I got to play characters from other Blizzard IPs and Mercenaries. And I think that also answers at 42 Fur's question here of how do you feel about Mercs? What would you like to see in the future?
Yep.
I feel like I covered that there.
Whenever we add a question from the same question from multiple people, I put it in italics. Yeah, Mercs has a few problems, mostly structure. I want to play a lot of PvP all the time with high-end Mercs, and I want to remove the obstacles to get me there. There is a pack dilution problem, there is a grinding problem in terms of time, and grinding is the game, I understand that, but if I don't want to do it and they want me to play the game, then that's a problem. And I want to play PvP, and I don't want to spend multiple hours making one character good in PvP when I need 6, and then a new comp comes out, and then I don't have it, and then I need to do that again. I don't want that experience, and I don't want to need to go find a way to get a new Merc or spend money on it. So, pack dilution, time gating, money gating, all the things that get in the way of me in PvP, and the end game for PvE that makes me not have to grind 2-6 would also be really, really nice. So, yeah. It's, I think there's a future because Mercs PvP is great. But the stuff around getting there is not great, and that's the biggest problem right now.
I don't think I have any opinions about Mercenaries. Not super interested. don't really care about what's in the future for it. But I'm glad that this mode is out there for people who enjoy it, and hopefully with some revamped stuff, more people that already enjoy the mode can enjoy it more, and maybe bring in some other people.
Cool.
All right. Couple more questions here from Dr. BOMD. What changes would you make to the core set for next year? Would you keep it mostly the same or change it significantly to give it a different feel? I would change it significantly, but try to keep a similar feel to it. I think there are enough Hearthstone cards that you can change up a ton of the cards in there, but kind of keep what they keep the idea that they had with the original core set, which is to make the classes feel like the classes, how they traditionally have been, and try to bring like a traditional feel to each of the classes, but have a significant change up in the cards that you're offering, so that people, while they still kind of understand what the class is about, they get to play with different cards.
Yeah, I would totally take the opportunity of core set and say, hey, maybe let's make a few swaps here, a few swaps there, bring back Doomguard, bring back Sunkeeper Tarim.
No. Okay, there are cards we want to bring back, and this is a great discussion. And there's also a great question from Mad at Arms, what cards we're going to miss in rotation. We're going to have a Sunsetting Year of the Phoenix episode, which will include Sunsetting Current Core, and we're going to talk about this as a core Decksplanations topic, and it's huge, and we want to give it the proper time it deserves. And we're over the 2-hour mark already, so it's not going to be today. But yes, the idea of variety here, and also do not reprint Doomguard and Sunkeeper Tarim. Don't do that. I enjoyed playing with the cards back then, but no.
Yeah, Tarim is broken. What are you even talking about? Jesus. Don't bring that card back. That card is busted.
How about we make Doomguard a legendary so it fits with today's charge rules? And
oh, good. Back. You know what'll fix this busted card on curve? Variance in deck building. That's what's going to make this better.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Smite, just such a popular card amongst people. People just love seeing that card in play so much.
The people that play with it love seeing it. Yeah, it's... Anyways, I think there's a lot of opportunity for core to get weird, but I don't know. Changes I would make for core set, you know what? I'm just going to say it. Leave out Wild Pyro, put Northshire Cleric back, give Priest something to do.
Oh, no, absolutely
no, Priest has plenty to do.
What
I wouldn't
do they
be
have to do
surprised
right
if
now?
they did, honestly. Quest Priest feels okay. Quest Priest feels okay. You played Shadow Priest to Legend, so I don't really know what else you need. Those are two very viable decks. There are
currently no statistics for the deck I played to Legend because nobody's playing Shadow Priest. You have to make him
rank 16
because I ended at 37 and I got there on the second. If
you want to see Priest just like shoot up to be
hold on
viable, it's going to be Northshire Cleric plus Wild Pyromancer, and suddenly
Wild Pyro.
Priest is insane.
There's no Wild Pyro in Standard, and I'm saying don't bring back Wild Pyro. There's no Wild Pyro. There's no Circle. How do you draw the cards? If there's no Pyro,
we have a card that says 1 mana, restore 3 life to all characters.
Okay. How do you damage the minions as Priest? How do you damage the minions as Priest? How do you do it? What do you do?
Things get damaged.
Okay, if your plan is Northshire Cleric, condemn, hope your opponent has minions, then gift. If that's your plan, that's a lot of setup and is beaten by not playing minions. Wild Pyro Circle was strong because it was a very cheap way to damage all of your own minions and then draw like 7. But keep in mind, after rotation, we're not going to have Renew, we're not going to have Sethic, we're not going to have all sorts of cards that we have right now. How powerful would Northshire Cleric be right now without any of the support tools that we're used to, without Circle, without Pyro? How good would it be right now?
I mean, it has the support tool of that 1 mana card that restores 3 to everything. I guess the question is how much can be done from in terms of minions being damaged. Certainly, if opponents aren't playing many minions, then it wouldn't be nearly as good without the enabler of Pyro. So I'll warrant that it would be worse than before, but I also think that this is how people get blessed for a lot of damage.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
We don't have Divine Spirit.
You do not want Northshire Cleric and Bless in the same format. I think that is dangerous territory. That is very dangerous territory that's gonna upset a lot of people.
But we don't have Divine Spirit. We don't have Divine Spirit.
Trust me, Hat. Just trust us.
I want Priest to have something
dangerous.
to do.
Priest has stuff to do. Like, what do you... I don't understand what you mean. You're like, I just, hit Legend on day 2 with this, Shadow Priest deck. It's kind of whatever, I just... rank 16, Legend, no big deal.
Because I was farming a bunch of Mozaki mages.
I was just farming. It beat them. It won games. It can win games.
Botticus, I filtered by Legend last 3 days for Priest class to figure out what people are doing. You know what I found? No deck found. There is no Priest deck in the last 3 days in Legend that's been played for 200 games. They need something. Priest needs something. I feel for the Priest mains. Mage had one bad launch after being the most popular class for an entire year, and they buffed 3 cards. And then they nerfed Trog and just left Priest there. Priest needs something. It's like, sure, I'll take more Shadow Priest support. It's losing Renew, Sethic, Apo, which already got nerfed, among a bunch of other things from last year. Ashes of Outland was a very good preset, and all that stuff is going away. It's losing Soul Mirror, losing Hysteria, losing Palm Reading. Losing Insight.
It's Palm Reading? All right, yeah, Priest needs help.
Yeah.
Priest is going to need help. Palm Reading's the big one.
You want Shadow Priest support, so you heard it here first. Hat wants Mind Blast in core set for
No. Okay, I think that my suggestion of Northshire Cleric is more sane than what you just said. I played with Mind Blast in Wild, by the way. Very powerful with what's going on there, but no, that's not a thing that needs to. I'll accept Shadow Bomber. The 1 mana 2/1 that deals 3 to both players, I'll accept Shadow Bomber.
Yeah. I'm down for Shadow Bomber. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not in I'm not in Legend at all. I'm just saying, Priest doesn't feel that bad. Just because people aren't playing it doesn't mean that they don't have stuff to do. It just means that they're doing other stuff.
I mean, mostly it doesn't feel that bad because when you see Priest, you know it's a rogue.
That's a very good point right now, because you're like, oh, this priest deck is great. It's got Wildpaw Nolan too. So, I would like for Priest to be strong statistically. I would like for it to be okay statistically. Even in the top half of classes. Core needs to give Priest something to do. Also, by the way, Core, I know I'm speaking in favor of Priest and against Rogue right now. I know this is very strange. We can be Rogue without Shadow Step. That can happen. Rogue can be Rogue without Shadow Step.
I'm just disagree with you every time. I can't agree with anything that you're saying anymore. I don't know what happened.
All right, hang on. We got to stop the tangents here. If you were game director, which direction would you take the game? Would you add more modes, make a 2.0 client, take BGs out and make it its own game, no longer in Hearthstone, or rework abandoned modes like Arena, or none of these things?
Stability. Pursue stability. Don't take anything. You don't need to take anything out of the client. Make the client run better. Fix up your house. Right? I want to fix up the house. Make the connection. Hire a bunch of server engineers. Throw money at them. Make the servers better. Hire a bunch of really skilled client engineers. Make the client more reliable, but you don't have to make a new client. I don't want Overwatch 2, because look at what's happened to Overwatch 1. Nothing. That's what's happening. Stability. figure out a way for all of these layering bugs to be fixed, go through all the scripting and all that, hire some really smart animation people, make the animations a little bit snappier. It's just, we need to fix up the house. So, what the game did this past year was great, but I think we're at the point where adding more modes just cannibalizes people's current time. I play 12% of what Hearthstone has to offer. Right? I play like 1 out of the 8 buttons that are available. I forget Tavern Brawls exist now. They tuck them away in a different menu. Just make the game work better and work on a bunch of features. I know Celestion had that thread out asking about feature changes. Go ahead and add auto squelch, make frame rate changes, put those in the menu of the game instead of in a text file that I have to explain to people where it is in their Windows app data folder. Make the client work like a 2021 client. Make it on par with the stability and polish of Runeterra. That's what I want this year. Make Hearthstone feel like a 2022 game.
Yeah, I think fully on board with that. That's basically what I consider making a 2.0 client. Like, you don't have to scrap it and throw it out. Just, bring it into the new age. Whatever's easiest to do that. Just bring it up so we don't have these constant. There's always going to be some bugs, but yeah, just bring it into the new era. We're good on modes, and yeah, Bot, you and I have been waiting for auto squelch for a very long time.
So what I was gonna say, which I think actually ties in really well with what Hat said, is I would want to make Hearthstone feel like Hearthstone used to feel, but keep all of the stuff that it has. Like, it feels like Hearthstone's been in quarantine. They've just been sitting at home, kind of gaining all this excess weight for this long period of time. And like, it feels like they just need to trim it down without getting rid of any of the stuff that they've gained over that period of time. Just like, make it feel, like Hat said, make it feel snappy, make it feel like it used to feel. Like, now it just, like, I log into the client, I see all of these, like, I see like this ad that gets flashed every time. Like, it takes forever to go into the collection, to switch from mode to mode. Just make it feel like just make it feel snappy, make it feel like when I guess kind of the way Hearthstone when it first came out was you click play, you go into a game, and everything just kind of is working, right? It's just going, and we're not reading off on our notes section, on our freaking notes section every week about the bug reports and all of the known issues and stuff. Like, catch up on all of that. I guess I would say focus on catching up on all that stuff and just making the client feel less bloated, because right now it just feels bloated. And I like all of the stuff that they've added, but it really feels like it's kind of slowed everything else down.
There was actually a moment where I was like, wait, is the only way I can get into my collection to go from the play button and then go from there to my collection? I kind of forgot that there was another way to get into the collection because there's just so many more buttons now, and I'd overlooked it.
Yeah, it's I put the client on Weight Watchers. Let's do it. I'm down.
Hearthstone Lite.
Yeah. So, Hunt the Snarkass. What are some things you'd like to accomplish in 2022 for the show, for yourselves, in the game, the community, personal goals you feel like sharing? I talked about it already with the I'd like to see a single-digit number next to my name. I'd also like to make sure that I play all the Book of Mercenaries, because I haven't finished them all, and I really want to see them all. And, I don't know, I have a lot of personal goals, and every time I say stupid things that seem obvious, like drink water and get enough sleep, it never happens ever for any reason. So I don't even know if I do have a goal. I have a personal goal. Listen to more music. listen to more music. I've just kind of stopped doing that for a while because I was doing podcasts for a bit, and then I switched back to public transit for a commute, and I can't do public transit and podcasts, so I just would put my headphones on, turn on the noise canceling, and nothing. Because it's I put on podcasts, and then I scroll on my phone, and the podcast disappears. It's still playing, but I have no idea what people are saying, so then I'll rewind it for 5 minutes when I realize what's happening. Then I scroll my phone again. Then I rewind the same 5 minutes and scroll my phone again. Then after 3 times, I'm like, this is stupid, and I just stop the podcast. So I just put the noise canceling on and just sit there. So I listen to more music. I made Spotify. I put it on the home screen of my phone, so I do that.
I think for me, my solution to getting distracted listening to a podcast was to up the speed to 1.5, because then I can actually focus on what's being said, because I have to focus to keep up. That was kind of a weird thing for me. But I've also started listening to audiobooks, and that's been great. I love that I'm actually getting through books, because I read slow as just like really, really horrendously slow. I used to, my mom never wanted to put me on an IEP because she said you're not going to get that kind of help later in life. So I never had anything like that. But that just meant I developed manipulation of my teachers so that I could sit in lunch to finish the math test. And I still took 2 periods to finish my math test, but I just relied on getting help from my teachers instead. So yes, I want to go through audiobooks, listen to more books, and I want to keep up the rate of streaming that I've been doing, because it's been really great watching the average numbers go up, and people actually interested in what I have to offer content-wise. I'd really like to push into YouTube, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So when it comes to script writing and editing, it's probably going to take me a while before I actually make the plunge for YouTube. But for now, streaming is what I want to really push on. And I do have another podcast that I'm doing. The intro and first episode should be coming out January 10th. I think that's Monday, right? So yeah, this is something I've been working on with my mother-in-law. Not Hearthstone related. It's to do with fairy tales, and she's a young analyst. So fairy tales have been something we've always been interested in, and I'm excited to finally get that off the ground. She is not super tech savvy, so it's been a challenge for me to shoulder like all the tech things. But I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Botticus.
And I am excited to get back to riding. I'm getting a new bike here in a few weeks, and I have not been going outside much for the past couple of years and gained a lot of weight. So I'm hoping to get back into riding and just kind of having a bike that I can go around town and just get some exercise in, and then take it to some pump tracks and just kind of get out there. I'm excited to start doing that.
I remember you used to do a lot of the bike riding back in the day.
I used to do a lot of bike riding. And, yeah, so I'm excited for a new bike, because new toys gives a lot of motivation for me to go out and do stuff. So excited for those to be in stock, because the bike I want is really neat.
Sounds fun. All right. Rapid fire. So Sheepport asked Diablos and Mercenaries should they add StarCraft, other Blizzard characters, and Dave asked what movie or book IP do you want to add to Hearthstone, specifically heroes. So other IPs, StarCraft would be cool. I'd be down to have Overwatch characters in. I don't care. Put them all in the game. I like Blizzard. Put all the Blizzard stuff in the Blizzard game, like whatever. But movie and book IP, that is interesting. I haven't thought about that, and I'd be curious to see what you all think would be a good natural fit.
Like if they were to do the Magic thing of, where Magic had Walking Dead stuff, or
crossovers from other brands, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, is
mean,
that the magic
Hearthstone-
thing now? What a world.
Yeah. They had for like the monster set, they had alternate art for the big, I don't know, monster movie. I forget the name of it, but
For not Ixalan. I know what you're talking about. Where they did the Bio Godzilla, the Biospace Godzilla, which was rad.
Yep. Yeah, no, super rad. Really cool stuff. For Hearthstone, I guess you'd want to go fantasy. I think like I don't know. I'm a big fan of Neil Gaiman's Stardust. I think that's probably a little niche, so unlikely, but I don't know, that'd be a cool one. Or something like actually Witcher. Witcher could be cool. Feel like
CDPR does make their own card game, but yes, I see
true.
that.
Yes. So I mean, look, we're not saying likely, but it'd be cool. Yeah, in terms of StarCraft stuff, though, I just want Nova and Kerrigan.
Yeah. Oh. Paper Mario. Put Paper Mario. You need to have, if you're doing Hearthstone, you need whimsy, right? You need it to be funny. And Paper Mario has consistently had fantastic writing. So I don't want the regular Mario characters. Paper Mario. I want that kind of level of whimsy and humor. Totally would want like a paper toad in the game or something like that. It's got to be something that's really like, you got to be clever and kind of funny and tongue-in-cheek, so I don't want anything that's too serious. I would worry about Witcher being a little bit too serious, but you could make Geralt like a little fun, they've done it they did it with Illidan, right? Like he's kind of like heavy and edgelordy and whatever, but they made him kind of funny in the game. You can do that. They made Geralt kind of, he's got some wit about him in the TV show. But yeah, Paper Mario. I'm about it. I'm with it.
I don't know. None of these suggestions feel like they would fit with the Hearthstone aesthetic. I'm gonna stick to Blizzard IPs getting at it.
We don't need to. Yeah. All right. What's the next question here, Botticus?
WB4min asks, what do you think of the proliferation of hero skins for Standard and Battlegrounds? What makes a skin stand out to you? Connection to a character or the way it looks? I like the way it looks. I wish that I wasn't prompted every time I enter the client to buy something. But I like that they always have these as options. I think giving a bit of a longer time period for these things would probably be better, so it doesn't feel like they're constantly adding stuff like every other week, because I think it feels a little overwhelming for stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, I mean, add as much as you want, just make the timeline not feel so immediate would be my suggestion.
Store is overflowing with stuff. I can't keep up with it. It feels like the store can't keep up with it. If Hearthstone has the COVID-19 weight gain, then the store is when they try to run in the treadmill for 15 minutes and then sit in the couch huffing and puffing eating potato chips. Like, it chugs while you try and scroll, and it feels just filled to bursting. So it's just like, I want there to be tabs for the modes. I want to have some control over what happens. You should be able to buy all the portraits a la carte. The prices should probably be a little bit lower. It's cool to have cosmetics that I don't need in the store. Like, I don't care. Sell whatever you need to sell that makes people buy it and support the game. But it's an awful lot of stuff that's constantly coming out, and I feel overwhelmed by things that I'm never going to buy because they're in modes I don't play.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to have just strictly separate stores, right? Like we have the, constructed Hearthstone or traditional Hearthstone store, the BG store, and the Mercs store, and they're all separate and there's no crossover. I think that would be helpful. And I'm really glad that there's a lot more cosmetics. I think if it pays off, that means more that they can give us for actually playing the game for free. But yeah, I just don't want it advertised every time I open the client.
You don't even have to separate it. Just tabs. Just one store with tabs. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, or tabs. Tabs.
When I walk into a grocery store, the aisles tell me what's in the aisle. They don't just put everything in one aisle and say, you figure it out. And by the way, here's what we got this week. The end cap is toilet paper and chocolate. Like, it put the items that are like each other next to each other and then tell me where they are. So yeah. And
you
then
just lost Edelweiss. I thought everything froze. Did I freeze? Can you hear me?
No, I think Edelweiss. Oh, she's back. She's back. Hello,
okay.
Edelweiss.
Am I back? Okay.
You are.
All right.
Yeah, my internet's been doing a thing. I'm getting new internet next week. Hopefully it's better.
Okay. This is fine except for the 1 minute.
All right. Next question. Favorite voice line, either from hero or card. Hat, can you please play the soundboard voice line? I wish that card saw more / any amount of play from my favorite class of all time. I'm sure Hat knows exactly what I'm talking about and has not deleted it off of his.
Is that it?
It's so good. It's so good. I love that
Yeah.
voice line.
Yep. There's also, this is not for the card you think it is, but one of my favorites. That's from Gibberer, not Gibberling, which is a different card. There's Rattlegore is on this. I got Yogg-Saron's Laugh is on here. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it's, I don't know. But I just can't say no to Undercity Huckster. Just the insistence with which you buy his funnel cakes. Hey, you want to buy a funnel cake? And then when he attacks, buy one! I love the energy behind it. So, still really, really enjoy that. But their lab partner, safety third when he attacks. Real big fan of that. Guardian Og Merchant, that's an upgrade, probably. There are a bunch of really, really good ones they've done in recent years.
Yeah, I unfortunately I play muted most of the time, so I know some of these when you say them, but I don't hear a lot. I usually play like long enough to hear a few when cards first come out, and so it's interesting. But I don't have a good handle on some of the best ones and what like having a favorite, because I just don't play with the game sound on too often. I think actually this isn't recent, but the Goblin Lackey had a good voice line.
Oh, Double Time, Double Pay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's relatively recent. It was an excellent voice line. I will say, the one that I didn't expect to be quite so memorable. It's just a big Pokemon yelling his own name, but we like Pokemon, so I don't know. Do you have voice line opinions, Botticus?
I gave you my voice line. Plague Scientist.
Oh, right.
The
I
best
played
one.
the thing. You told me.
You played the sound.
I
did not want to do an impression.
Okay, I did do that. That is true.
Go poorly.
Yes. So, few miscellaneous questions. 42 for says, if you haven't done so, please talk about the great work the new community manager has done for the community. We have already talked about that. I'll do it again. I'll do it this as often as you want. Alkali Lake, amazing, incredible, awesome. The whole community team, really, really great. Also, big fan of Deck Tech really stepping it up and being so visible. It's just awesome. Beef Squatch asks, do you think Maestra sounds like a name for a pharmaceutical-related question? If I'm still a priest after 4 turns, should I call a doctor? Ask your doctor if Maestra is right for you. I didn't think of this before, but I kind of see it now, but usually pharmaceuticals have a Z or an X in there somewhere. Maestra might roll off the tongue a little bit too easily. And finally, the last...
Maestra Z.
Yeah. Yeah, something
the more
something
unusual characters in your allergy medicine, the higher intensity it is, right?
Yeah. If there's a Q in there, then like that stuff, don't drive after you take something with a Q in it. And finally, the most important question from Dread Lobster, it is the word Botticus with a question mark, which I will interpret as Botticus. To which I will say, absolutely Botticus.
Just makes me think of Botticus? Botticus.
Yeah. Like Rattlegore, but Botticus. Yeah. Botticus, do you have any opinions on this question?
I'm confused. I didn't even see this because it wasn't at me. It was just my name, and I want to type yes with the question mark, but it's like been so long. I think I should just wait a week and then respond.
Yeah, this is a very philosophical question if you think about it. So, we'll answer this next week. But we made a week with no news, somehow our longest episode in a while. That is very much on brand for us. So we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, Concede.com. You can find our contact info, show notes, Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live. Following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord, discord.coinconcede.com. Run into our email, coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on facebook.com/coinconcede. Like some CC swag. Head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number 30, Doge DK, Proby1, Crush, Cap, B Squatch, David P, Snowpack, Lucky, Fade to Black, Walu, Itinerant Wizard, and Jeremy T. Coin Concedes, and also thanks for all the people who subbed: Doge, Wild Scientist Appeared, Little Robotus, Mad at Arms, Guns Syndicate, and Proby1. Also, anyone that I forgot about. I would like to coin concede to Guff Rune Totem on Twitter and in general for being Guff, and the Hearthstone team for sending me this cool Hearthstone like beer sign. I don't know if I'm ever gonna drink out of it, but it came in a really nice box. Just like the box is it's like padded. It's really nice. And the Blizzard team, thank you so much for telling me about XCOM on iPad, and screw you for telling me about XCOM on iPad. Edelweiss, your coin concedes.
So first off, thank you, listeners, for all of your questions. We were worried about not having enough for this episode, and then we didn't have enough time for all your questions. So we'll have to throw some of those to a bonus episode coming to you soon? Question mark? We'll see. And then Coin Concede to, we'll throw a weird one out there, Yaskier, because Witcher Season 2 Yaskier is fantastic. Just top-notch. And yeah, it's watching Season 2 with my wife after already having watched it myself. I've been playing The Witcher 3, and yeah, excited to explore that world more because it's just so much fun.
Botticus.
I'm gonna coin concede to Dread Lobster.
Yes, all right. Our show is not going to get better than that, so we're going to call it here. So keep calm and always question yourself, I suppose. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede? All right, stopping audio recording. That was rad. Friends, thank you so much for hanging out. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.